Reptichip sets the standard for reptile substrates. Made from the highest quality coconut available anywhere in the world, Reptichip allows enthusiasts and keepers to provide their reptiles with the necessary humidity and thermoregulation required for your animals to thrive. You can support the podcast by heading to reptichip.com/snakeboy or visit the link in the description below. This episode is brought to you in part by ExoTerra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use ExoTerra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, ExoTerra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. ExoTerra. Make your reptiles feel at home. This episode is brought to you in part by Unlimited Exotic Pets. Every day is Veranda Day for Nick Lillis, and it shows. At Unlimited Exotic Pets, Nick produces high-quality monitor lizards with a deep commitment to ethical care practices and top-tier nutrition. These aren't just pets. They're responsibly bred, ethically raised animals. Whether you're looking for a new companion, starting a breeding project, or anything in between, Nick has you covered. Unlimited Exotic Pets, keeping and breeding quality without limitations. Love reptiles? Don't miss this. If you're passionate about reptiles, amphibians, and everything cold-blooded, Reptiles magazine is a must-have. Each issue is packed with expert care tips, stunning photography, and the latest news in the reptile world. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or just starting your reptile journey, this magazine has something for you. Subscribe today and stay informed on the best ways to care for your scaly friends. For only $14.99 a year, you can step outside your algorithm and get exposure to things that you wouldn't normally see or learn about. My family reads Reptiles magazine, and you should too. Visit subscribe.reptilesmagazine.com to get started. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. It depends. You know, you're a chill guy. So it's a bit more of a chill podcast, you know?
I like chill.
You got the shades, you know. Oh man, we're going full. So how did you end up like this, Dave?
What do you mean? Just in life?
Yeah.
You mean in storage rooms, just kind of doing podcasts? I don't know, man. Luck. I think it was a lot of luck, to be honest with you.
What kind of hat is that? Is that like what kind of hat is that?
I think it's one of those. You know what I'm saying?
It's like a band.
Like a band.
Okay.
Hat. It's like a band leader.
Did you find that where you are, or do you bring that around with you?
No, actually, I found this like 15 minutes before we got started. There's a big like yard sale outside the Reptile building. So I took a lap. It was either this or I was looking at a really nice fur coat. I ended up going with this. $5. Couldn't beat it.
Dude, you can't beat that.
No.
You can't beat that. And what about the shades?
Oh,
You've had those.
I always have these.
Yeah.
These are nice, actually.
Yeah.
I got these at a thrift store. There's these little pearls on the end, so it rolls right past your cheeks. It's nice.
Wow. Yeah, that's fancy, man. That's high class.
Yeah, the beard really helps, you know? It's balances things out, you know?
So on your Facebook page, is that a picture of you without a beard?
There's probably a couple in there. I think I started growing this like in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, unrecognizable.
I'm the same guy. No, that was the handlebar mustache.
Wow. No going back, right?
I did the handlebar for like 10 years. No change.
Yeah.
I think this is the next decade of my life.
All right. Well, this is episode 97 of The Expert and the Idiot. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Dave Levinson. We met at Daytona, and Dennis McNamara kind of, he told me, he said, Dave's really hurt that he hasn't been invited on yet. And we've been coordinating ever since.
Yeah, we've been small talking ever since. It's been perfect, honestly. And I think it lined up just right, man. Like, I'm in a nice little spot, no distractions. Excited to be here, honestly.
Yeah, and this is my first episode where I have a snake on me as I'm recording.
Saw that.
This is a blood python.
Who did that come from?
Kara Norris.
Oh, type.
And yeah, her name is Karma. I'm trying to get her a little bit more socialized, a little bit, because I don't want to deal with her. She's very huffy, she's never struck at me, but she just doesn't appreciate my presence. So I figure if I kind of desensitize her, it'll work out,
No, I've got one big blood in my collection. It's like a male. He's just like a giant. I wouldn't say I fully trust him.
Yeah.
Whenever you take him out, he does that huff thing. I always say just you cradle their body weight across. They usually are pretty comfortable. You don't have to worry about biting. Some people hold them wrong and they let the lower half of the body droop down. You can tell the animal's uncomfortable. I feel like that's when those animals are striking.
Yeah, it would be like if somebody like held you under your armpits, like you'd just be really, emasculated and uncomfortable.
Truths there. Truths.
So how did you get into reptiles? How did you end up, and your company name is Custom Scales, right? And those measure body weight and body mass.
I guess you can count it that way. It's did you ever watch the snake bite videos back in the day?
Oh yeah, of course.
You remember when he would do different mutations, you call them paint jobs?
Mm-hmm.
I always liked that. So when I was kind of coming up with a new concept for a name, I thought paint jobs was so unique back in the day. I thought Custom Scales was like the reason behind it.
Nice. And what do you work? You work with boas and ball pythons primarily?
We got actually a pretty diverse collection. Biggest part of the collection will be the boa constrictors and the ball pythons, but I got about 100 blue tongue skinks, all northerns. I do Wolma pythons. We got about 20 or so of those. Angolan pythons. I got some exanthic blackheads that'll go this year. We got Brettles, children, spotteds, Honduran milk snakes, a few other king snake projects, bunch of corn snakes. I just picked up some mountain kings. I'm probably forgetting something, but I want to say we have probably between like 10 to 15 species total.
And what does your facility look like?
So I rent a little spot. It's like 1,800 square feet. The front half of the building is kind of like all the babies, the grow outs, the clubrids, and the skinks. And then the back half of the building is pretty much all the breeder boa constrictors and breeder ball pythons.
Wow. 1,800 square feet. That's like as big as my house. That's a lot of room.
It's nice. It's not too much. So with my old partner, the company got really big, and at one point we were like 6,500 square feet. As he kind of got out of the hobby, I looked at everything, and I just didn't want to take on that kind of responsibility. So essentially, I just downsized it to where we're at right now. It's probably still about 1,000 animals, which sounds really crazy, but it is
crazy.
So incredibly manageable when you did like 5,000 or 6,000 animals before, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Now, is that including babies or is that just breeding stock?
I think it's close. It's got to be about 800 breeders, I want to say. Because we got like 100 boas, 400 ball pythons. Like I said, about 100 skinks, and then maybe like 100 colubrids. And then miscellaneous for another 50 to 80 animals. So I always say give or take 1,000. But yeah, with babies, we have anywhere from like, I think my total baby racks are like 720 slots. So
wow.
Sometimes they're full, sometimes they're a little more empty.
And how many, like, do you have like a staff, or is this like how many people are involved in this operation?
Just me and the girlfriend. Um,
Wow.
it's honestly with like a daily spot cleaning. We keep everything on some kind of bedding. Nothing's on paper, so with paper stuff, it's like a daily clean. Just keeping them on bedding. We're in there like every other day, probably spot cleaning. I think I can do all 100 skinks in about 15 minutes. So I start my day usually that way, checking on everybody. The colubrids, we do them with a shop vac. So we just, one person shop vac and the poops out, another person's putting the bedding in. So we kind of assembly line that. The girlfriend pretty much manages all the baby room stuff by herself, and all the big boas in the back and the ball pythons. Typically, I'll just do on my own, but it's we go in for about 5 hours a day and go from front to back in the building. And if there's no extra projects, we're done. To be honest with you.
Wow. And that's your full time. That's everything, right?
Yeah, that's everything at the moment. I think I've been doing this full time for about 10 years. But when I first started going full time, I owned like a little sports apparel company on the side where I did like custom jerseys for teams, and then I also did acrylic display cases. The acrylic display cases were kind of really what put me over an edge in the hobby, where I most of the money coming from that I was able to put right back into the hobby, which kind of helped expand it for me, I guess you could say.
Wow. So how old are you?
41 now,
Okay, so you went full time at 31,
about 30,
and
31. Yeah.
wow. And do you have animals at your house?
No animals in the house anymore. It used to be that way. We used to have a bunch in the building, a bunch in the house, but the animals in the house were kind of like a separation from like what me and the old partner did and what was just simply mine from, my past.
Yeah.
So there was always like the skinks in the house and things like that. And the old house is a little bit bigger, newer place. Honestly, we kind of we shrank down our life a lot to have a bigger yard.
Hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, sorry, I kind of derailed.
You're fine.
So how did you get into reptiles? When did it happen?
Um, Catching them all my life as a kid. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. You know Ryan McVeigh?
I do not.
He does VivTech. Nice guy from Wisconsin. The reason I brought him up, I was hoping you knew him. Me and him literally grew up next to each other in Madison, Wisconsin, and didn't become friends until like we were in our 30s. But he's in
Oh
like the
wow.
Herpetological Society in Madison, Wisconsin. I think they got the biggest herpetological society based on members anywhere in the United States.
Oh
Um,
wow.
but yeah, no, real nice guy. You know, reach out to him sometime. You might enjoy him. Very knowledgeable. But yeah, long story short, I caught reptiles growing up in Wisconsin. Then I moved to Buffalo, New York. When I was living in Buffalo, New York, I started going to my local pet store and buying like rainbow boas and Amazon tree boas and whatever weird thing they had. And the gentleman who ran the reptile department was a guy named Ken Leach. He did sand boas. He pretty much said, I need to start going to shows, need to start learning more about the hobby, not spending $300 on something at a pet store I can get for 150 somewhere else kind of thing. And honestly, once I found out about the whole breeding aspect and the morphs and all these different species, I was just kind of hooked. And honestly, ever since I got out of high school, I've been trying to work on this to do it.
Wow. So what do you think it is that actually drew you to reptiles?
I think growing up fishing as a little kid, when fish weren't biting, I was catching frogs and turtles and snakes. And I think that just always stuck with me my entire life.
Hmm. What was the first animals you reproduced?
Um, Crested geckos, not that I don't count that, but it was a bioactive. But boa constrictors were the first like species I really got to work with. And I
Nice.
think that was 2000. I graduated in 2002. I want to say that was 2005. I had my first boa litter.
Wow. Damn. And do you keep any Argentine boas?
Do I keep what?
Argentine boas?
Oh, so I had one pair of Argentines. I lost the female a few years ago and sent the male out on breeding loan. Argentines are one thing I love to work with again. I was always a big fan of the Max Pinks and the T positive stuff. Um, yeah, no, it's one of those ones. I only ever had a pair, and when I lost the girl, it just kind of set me back.
Mm, Yeah. Do you mind if I like? Do you know how you lost her?
So during breeding, when she had her ovulation, she became twisted. Like somehow, like the oviducts were all twisted up after the ovulation. And that was it. She bred the previous year, and I want to say she was about 7 years old before I bred her for the first time. I just lost her. Yeah.
Uh, man, that scares the shit out of me. Because
Well,
that's my favorite snake in my collection is my Argentine female.
nice. I I love the Argentines. I love that people want them more now than ever before, which I think is really cool. I've always, and again, I'm always very morph motivated in the hobby, so I really would just like another pair of T positives at some point.
Mm. What draws you to morph animals over like lines
Um,
or localities?
well, I think the comment I made, and I'm not sure if it's the actual reason, but all through high school, I was always an artist. And this is just kind of my continuation of that in my head, I guess you could say, just manipulating colors in different ways to kind of see what they look like.
Mm.
But no, I don't know. I've just always been drawn to things that shouldn't exist. They're it's weird stuff, man. I've been lucky enough to find like one albino tadpole in the wild in my backyard one time. I've never seen another mutation, but I go herping a lot of guys who have been lucky enough to see some kind of mutation in the wild, and it's on my bucket list if I'm lucky enough.
Wow. What did you do with that tadpole?
Brought it in, raised it for a year, and I went to like I think it was March Tinley, and I told a few of the frog breeders that I found this tadpole, showed them pictures, and they're all like, as soon as it gets out of the water, it's going to die, kind of thing.
Mm.
So it changed into a frog. It came out, ate some worms, ate some roaches, died within a week.
Ah.
So bad luck. I thought about just giving it to one of the frog guys originally and let them do the work, but it seems like inevitably that was going to happen based on other ones that had popped up before. But it was a bummer, but it was cool raising it for a year.
Yeah. So what is it like doing shows constantly? Like that's like every weekend, right?
It This time of the year is usually pretty bad. Um, So, here's the problem with this. Me 5 years ago, I love doing shows. I love the food. I love the people. I enjoy being face to face in a sale. I feel like I have a better chance talking to somebody face to face than over an email.
Mm.
Um, I used to do about 30 shows a year on average, but any year I did 30 shows, I would never have a good breeding year. So I'm to the point now I would really like to try to do more online sales and less going to the shows and maybe try to limit it to like 5 or 6 a year. Um, I just want to be home more, I guess. Get a little tired. I pretty much lived on the road my entire 30s and half of my 20s just doing shows every weekend almost. I'm burnt out.
Mm. So how many shows do you do a year?
I think I got it down. I think this year I'll probably do 15 by the end of the year.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
No, it's less than half that I've done in the past. It's still a lot, but a couple of them are more local to me. But, most of the shows I pick because, kind of for random reasons, but of course, the reason that they've always been good to me. So I like going out to like Colorado. I always do well. I've always done well in Tennessee. Tennessee is not what it used to be. There's so many Tennessee shows now that it's a little saturated. It used to be I
Mm.
came down here and always did well. It's a little more hit or miss. Colorado, like I said, still treats me really good. Texas was really good for years for me. So, yeah, when I lived in Missouri, I'd either be in Colorado, Texas, or Tennessee for most of my shows. When I lived in Buffalo, New York, I was in Tennessee, North Carolina, or South Carolina for most of my shows.
Wow. And so what's it like preparing for a show and getting all the animals ready that you're going to bring there? Like
Uh,
like how like are they all going into deli cups before you even leave? Like what's that process like?
a lot of display cases. I always tell people like, so when you're setting up your animals at a show, if it's worth something, put it in a display case. Not just for the obvious reason, but when I walk by a table at a show, I'm not usually looking at deli cups because I don't expect to see anything nice in a deli cup. I'm usually going
Mm.
right for the display cases. Now, colubrids, that doesn't count. There are really nice colubrids that'll be in collections in deli cups, completely appropriate. I pay attention to those tables. But If it's investable or nice, it goes in a display. If it's pet quality, is the way I put it, and that could be from $200 or less, always in a deli cup. Pet people sometimes are a little scared from the displays. Same reason, they expect there to be something too nice in there. So that's
Mm,
usually the reason I do the makeup on my table. Yeah.
interesting.
And
Okay, so
pack up's easy, man. Honestly, everything's usually pre-labeled. If something sells at a show, it's blank. I get a new label as I'm packing for the next one. Everything's got a code on there, so I know exactly what animal went in there. We keep everything clean as we go. As crazy as it seems, like once you get into a rhythm and start doing a bunch of them, you don't even think anything of it anymore.
really, and like how do you get the animals water? Is it are they just kind of fasted from?
3 days out of the away from water, away from their caging. I do keep heat tape on the table, and I got it on a thermostat. In the summertime they like to run the air conditioner. In the wintertime, sometimes they don't run the heat enough. So I feel like it's almost always cold at a reptile show. So at least heat on the table, water stuff. I, when you ship an animal from like here to Europe, sometimes transit can be anywhere from 3 to 7 days. 3 to 4
Mm,
days on the weekend without water, not too bad for them.
okay. And like, what was it like being into all of this before COVID and then going through, I just had Bob Vu on
Yeah.
and we were talking about kind of or he was talking to me rather about the explosion, right? In interest in ball pythons and, all these people that kind of got into it and then got out of it. And what was it like being in this in a big way before and then still being in it afterwards?
Um, well, going into COVID, I thought we were screwed. I don't know why. I thought people were going to not have money. I thought people were going to hunker down. Um, what I didn't think is that we were going to get free money and everybody likes to spend money. So it was kind of a weird year. It was kind of like, going into bad years when you think it's going to be bad, a lot of times I would just expect to be holding back nicer animals. So in like 3 or 4 years, when the market comes back around again, I have something quality to show off to people. So going into COVID, we held back a lot until we realized what that market was doing. And then we did start selling a little more, but that was actually initially going to be a really heavy holdback year for us.
Mm,
But I thought, like I said, COVID was great. There's been a lot of really good years in the hobby, but there was an influx of people that came in. And, it was actually kind of fortunate for when they came in the hobby because I always joke around like, if you came in the hobby in like 2015 or 16 and you were a ball python guy and you had money, you were probably buying a scaleless ball python or you were buying a sunset. Now, the
mm,
sunset is very investable, and don't get me wrong, at that point, I think it was like a $35,000 animal. But if you bought into the Scales project at that point, it went from $70,000 to bust within 2 years.
wow.
So, why I say it was fortunate people came in when they did during COVID, there was some really great looking animals across the board on every species being produced. So if you came during COVID and built a collection, you were far better off if you came in 3 years prior to that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like, did you end up selling off like a bunch of holdbacks that you thought you would keep just because the market was so crazy?
Um, yes. It's kind of one of those things that like nothing's ever a holdback until it's a holdback. When customers come over, a lot of times they're going to want to see what they can't see on your Morph Market page or anywhere else online. But there were days like, we did have a lot of sunset production around that time. We were doing pretty good with the puzzle project around that time. Even the boa constrictors, I think that was the year that I did my last Argentine litter. Um, Whatever we did want to sell around that time, yes, it did sell. The shows were really good, but it's not an arrogant thing to say, but the shows were good before COVID, and honestly, they were good for the couple years afterwards. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily consider the hobby at a low because there were times in the past where it seems like it was a lot worse off. But one thing that happened during COVID was, there was an inflation in prices. Your Argentine boa pre-COVID was like $150, $200. During COVID, I want to say it was a $450 to $600 animal, and then it kind of stabilized at that, and maybe it's come down a hair. Well, there were ball python mutations that did the same thing. I think I want to say, I don't want to say the exact number, but going into COVID, I want to say sunset clowns were five figures, but on the low side of five figures. And
Mm.
some people thought that was even a little high. Xanthic crested geckos were $2,000 pre-COVID. Post-COVID, during COVID, we saw Xanthic lily whites for $37,000. So
What?
there was an inflation of so many prices, in my opinion, across the board during the COVID time that now that things are stabilizing a little more, I think people are considering that to be a bad market. But honestly, a lot of those prices we were very fortunate to get because of the high demand of people coming in the market.
Mm. And have you do you think that there was a dip after COVID, but the hobby has since recovered?
I don't, again, know if it was necessarily a dip. I just think that when it came to high end, people were just a little more selective about what they were buying. In the low end market, yes, it did hurt a little bit. Pet owners, I always, when a person comes to my table and they want to buy a pet, after they decide they want it, usually the last thing I say is, hey, you're going to have to get the setup while you're here. Before you give me anything, go see how much you're going to be invested in this. And then if you want the animal, let's move forward. To be honest with you, a lot of times they don't come back to the table when they realize that $30 ball python is going to cost them $200 in caging.
Mm.
So sometimes in that aspect of the market, it honestly is hurt a little bit. Um, but I had a buddy who sold six $10,000 ball pythons in 6 weeks when people were saying the market was dead.
Wow.
All the same combo, just one buyer after another. He was one of the few guys with it, so he was fortunate to have it. But the market's not bad. Just some prices are just a little overinflated still, and some things honestly are probably going to be pets prices soon, and people need to accept it. Um, you can get a much higher end pet now for a real low price when it comes to about anything except for the weird stuff. Like I said, my buddy Scott was still selling Argentines at Daytona for I think $600 a pop. Certain things
Uh-huh.
went up and are going to stay there, and those markets are fine. The niche markets, ball pythons, man, even the crested geckos, lily whites. I mentioned the Xanthics went up to like 30 plus thousand. I think that's a $1,200 or $1,500 animal, and that's just 3 years after that. So certain industries, you see bigger fluctuations in prices, and it's all just based on the supply and demand. And with the crested gecko market, it was the Asian market was buying so many of them, they were paying a premium. Once they got them over there, it wasn't necessarily, they didn't have to buy them here anymore. So we
Mm.
lost a big part of our buying base.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's a lot of a lot of the stuff that you're saying is just things that I don't even think about, because I'm not. But I mean, man, when you're breeding at scale like that, um, custom scales, when you're
Right.
when you're breeding at such a putting out such numbers, yeah, it's got to be wild watching it, go up and down and watching trends. And I mean, do you notice that that you'll see like popularity in something increase or decrease just based off of what like pet tubers are doing on their channels?
But firsthand of that. So back, I would say it was about 9 years ago. Barchek went to Australia and came back, and he got to see Joe Ball's collection, all the blue tongue skinks over there. And he came back to the United States and said, "Man, these things are amazing. They're going to be the next big thing." Now, at that point, I was already working with him, fortunately. So when he started talking about snake bites, I went from selling them at the shows for like 150 to 175 to I think at one point 450 to $600 a piece for your most basic looking northern blue tongue.
Wow.
Also, with him talking about it and creating this new drive in the market, and this was so this is another market, like you said, based on him and a couple other factors, blew up in the hobby. So Barchek came in and started talking about how they're the next big thing, they're this amazing pet. That happened, then a company called Gourmet Rodent noticed that, piqued their interest. Our Bill went out and bought like 200 blue tongues. Barcheck bought as many as he could. And there was one other big guy, leave his name out, that was also buying them in the hundreds. And then all the other little guys like me and everyone else had been doing it for a while. You'd wake up in the morning and check fauna, and as soon as an ad was up, you bought it immediately. It was up for like 4 minutes and gone.
Oh my
Literally,
God.
all because Brian was talking about these things. A normal female blue tongue, $1,500 to $2,000 on some people's tables. It was a insane market. Then the video stopped getting the clicks. He stopped talking about blue tongues as much, and they went from being up to $450 to $600 all the way down to about $250, which is fine. I love them at $250. But the thing is the really nice red projects, yellow projects, and orange projects, they used to fetch a couple grand, $2,500 for the really, really, really good stuff, is like a $400 to $600 animal now, because what that community lacks is people wanting to breed the species. So, if you're going to produce breeder quality animals and the hobby's not expanding, you're not going to be able to get a lot out of them. And that's why those animals are now $400 to $600 animals.
Mm.
But he blew that market up in a very short period of time. And like I said, I was very fortunate to be in it when he did.
Man, so now what drew you to blue tongues in the beginning? Do you think that it's important that you just keep whatever you're passionate about and whatever you love, and just let the market do whatever it's going to do, and you're just going to be doing whatever you're passionate about, and that's all that matters? I'm sure that you've seen, so obviously you saw like a blue tongue bubble, and then you saw a ball python bubble, right? And
Yeah.
so you see these things kind of cyclically come in and out. And since you're always in the market, you just get to enjoy the highs and then, just go through the lows like it doesn't really affect you.
Yeah. So the blue tongues, I love Australian species. At one point, I wanted to commit to all Australian species, but I love my boas more. So blue tongues are that Australian species I wanted to work with. When you talk about having a passion for something, ball pythons are a really great species to come in. I always say, like, ball pythons are day trading. It's fucking fast. You always got to be ready to invest. You got to be able to throw a lot at it when necessary, and you got to be ready to lose some every once in a while. Everything else is like playing the stock market. You buy something, you sit on it, it's only going to go up in value. Like we talked about Argentines, all these like different species that aren't a ball python. And I'm not shitting on ball pythons in any way. Ball pythons make a lot of people a living. They bring a lot of clout to the hobby. It brings in a lot of big investors. And when those guys come in and one day decide they don't want to be ball python guys anymore, they typically still have the passion to work with the animals, and they will go after another species that makes them happy.
Hmm.
Brian Carter, BC, um, Tennessee guy, big ball python guy when he came in. At one point, even talked about maybe leaving his day job. Things were going so good. And he has now switched over completely to colubrids, and he is incredibly happy. I think the ball python hang up, he didn't get out of him because of the market. I think that had a lot to do with the rats, but he switched to something he was a little more passionate about, in my opinion, and he's happy. You might come in with ball pythons. You could always use that ball python money to buy other stuff.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, are you passionate about ball pythons?
There's an artistry about them, like, going back to paint jobs, there's no species in the hobby you can manipulate in more ways than a ball python, because your color palette is 30 mutations deep. Or, I'm sorry, 300 mutations deep. Um, there's so many little things, like, I remember like when the vanilla cream was made for the first time, everyone's mind was blown that those two basic ass genes, fire and vanilla, can make such a unique animal. I remember when the mystic potion was made and everyone went nuts over that. So like, all these like little milestones of these like weird looking ball pythons that popped up from pairings you didn't expect. And we still see so much of that today. That's what I love about ball pythons. The only place I suffer in ball pythons is I'm very Jewish about my money, and I'm not always willing to spend a lot on something new. Like I don't work fast enough in the species to trust myself with a big investment. I take my time sometimes to get things to breeding size. I don't always get maximum production out of it that somebody else could do. And because of that, I do better with a lot of other species over ball pythons for that reason alone. But a
Hmm.
lot of people around me, guys like Bob, Bob has a very diverse collection now. He's getting a lot of really cool things. I got to watch Bob coming up at like the Atlanta Repticon. I got to talk to him when he just had deli cups on his table. I was fortunate enough that Mary bought him one of my display cases as a Christmas present one year. I love Bob's coming up in the hobby. And, another guy that I always give a lot of patting on the back towards is Justin. Justin's been in the hobby as long as I have. He had all the same ingredients everybody's had for the last 20 years, and he figured out a way to manipulate them in ways that no one else was thinking. And he is honestly one of the biggest reasons that market is doing what it's doing because, we joke around about it. You know, if I made the first Pompeii, I would have probably asked a few grand, something reasonable based on what the ingredients were. Justin challenges the market, and a lot of people step up to the plate and spend money. It
Hmm.
shows the animal is worth more than it is with one person over another. And I got a lot of respect for him building his company the way he did, with the same way the rest of us couldn't. His weekly videos, awesome. Keeps people engaged, shows them the stuff he's working on. He does tours of his facility. His facility looks like a museum. Glass walls, beautiful floors, everything is just spotless. It looks really good in the hobby having guys like that because he also makes everybody else want to live up to that standard. People started getting rid of their PVC racks and buying ARS racks. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, people do really well in ball pythons. I'm just too slow of a breeder to be a good ball python guy when it comes to over investing.
The other thing that Justin did that is, has really resonated with the pet keeping side of the hobby is the pet sort of quality ball pythons, the ones that have the personality to be a pet, the ones that are, they're not terrified of everything, and they're more bred for that purpose. I don't know how they do it, if the cart comes before the horse, if they just try to find affordable ball pythons that aren't afraid, and are just more outgoing and curious.
Um, so I sell a lot of pets, and I'm sure they pick them out the way they do, but like, the only when I have somebody come to my table, especially a kid, I want to simplify it as much as possible. And I always say focus. You got ball pythons?
I used to.
All right. Good for you, man. Way to get away from 'em. So, when you take a ball python out, I always tell a kid, take it out and be still. The animal's more afraid of you than it is of you. I said that backwards, but you got the point.
Yeah.
And then you wait for the tongue flicker. When you take a ball python out, if it doesn't flicker its tongue, it means it's scared shitless. It might strike out of fear. Let the animal be afraid for a moment. Then you're going to notice they do a really quick flicker and you can see the eyes almost shift. And then it goes to a long, steady flicker and the animal immediately will start investigating, working its way around comfortably. Just simply telling people about that, any animal could be a good animal if you just let it be afraid for a moment. And when it's ready not to be afraid anymore, handle it.
Mm. I actually got a Canova ball python, and if I could go back, I probably would have asked for one that would be better as a pet, because that thing was it would ball up every time I took it out. It was terrified, super head shy, just terrified of everything, and my kid, he really likes ball pythons, and eventually I will be getting him a ball python, but
Yeah.
it's a matter of I definitely want him to have an animal that he'll have a positive experience with, something that might be a little bit more laid back.
So what you're saying is you bought this animal called a ball python and it was just always in a ball and you hated it for it?
Well, no, I did not hate it for it. Don't put words in my mouth. Just, I felt bad for the animal because my kid wanted to interact with it.
That's
He
fair.
wanted to interact with the snake, and the snake didn't like the interactions, so it was always hard for me to tell him that, hey, he's really stressed out right now, and try to make him understand that was difficult.
I get that. Mm, It is a stressful species. Why they're always rolled up in a ball and why they're always uncomfortable. Until eventually they're not someday. Um, you know what you should have got them? You should have got him one of the slow ball pythons, like a spider or a super spot nose. Man, those things, they don't care about anything. They're never rolled up in a ball, at least not that much. You should have went with that.
How do you feel about the ethics of those morphs?
Um, well, I will say in a lot of communities that stuff is getting phased out now. Now that there's actually variety, I think in what in carpet pythons you got the jag.
Yeah.
In boa constrictors you got the scoria, and ball pythons you got the whole wobble complex. But the spider, of course, is the worst one. Um, certain communities will deal with something for a little while, but I feel like it's getting phased out now. We're down to one spider ball python in our entire collection.
Oh,
It was just one I made years ago. I really loved. It was one of the nicer snakes I had made. I just like looking at it. Do I think it's a problem that people have them as pets or people work with them? Not necessarily. As you know, like with the spider ball python, it's a deformity in the skull where the ear canal is a little different, which creates a unbalance in the animal. And depending on the head structure, that's going to determine how wobbly they are. If I produce an animal that's super, super wobbly, a lot of times it's free to a good home. If I produce a spider ball python that's 90% normal, it just kind of goes on the table like any other animal would. But we don't go out of our way to make animals like that anymore. And to be honest with you, in my collection, I have like one scoria boa left and one spider ball python. And I think that's all I really have for what we'll call wobble animals.
hmm. Are there any other boa morphs that are problematic?
Well, yes and no. You want them all?
Yeah, sure.
So call albinos, sometimes from breeding call to call or call to heck call to make them, you'll get I think it's like a bacterial infection in the eye. And
Oh,
if
yeah.
untreated, it kind of like, those like things on Halloween, those snakes, you light that little like pill on fire and it expands.
Hmm.
That essentially what'll happen to the eye if it's untreated till it explodes, and that could also cause an infection. They die. So that's one thing
Jeez.
with albinos can happen. You see a lot more people breeding the VPIT positive albino nowadays compared to the T negative call albino. Um, Other ones in boas, almost every super project. So like super motleys, bad head structure, bad body tone, weak muscular. Typically, you're going to die within a couple years. Super jungles, body structure looks good, but they usually don't make it very long. The Roswell ladder tail in the beginning in the super form did not do very well, but they're starting to do better now. Um, Super Celtics are the same way. A Celtic to a motley makes the smoke boa. That's another like patternless animal with skull formation looks really narrow and wrong. Um, Scoria wobble. Might be some other random things. I feel like there should be more than that. Really, if you stay away from supers and boas, you're pretty good.
Mm.
There's only a few projects where the actual super is viable.
Super IMG is deadly, right?
No, it's not deadly, and it's also you can't ID it. Um,
Oh, okay.
you could breed a pinstripe ball python to a pinstripe ball python, and you'll make a super pinstripe. You won't know which one's a super pin until you breed it. Same thing with the IMG. You could breed IMG to IMG. 25% of them will be super IMGs. You will never know if it's a super IMG until you breed it. It's not going to be blacker as far as I'm aware. I don't know if the color change is going to happen differently. I think it's a little more of a crapshoot. So you could do it. You just couldn't ID it.
Okay. Interesting. How do you breed your boas? What do you cycle to trigger them to breed?
Um, it's going to sound really bad. I've done it like 4 different ways in the last 20 years. Initially, I did it based on all the wild caught literature out there. Typically, we put them together like late spring into fall, normally by October. Keep an eye on body language in the beginning. I'd leave everything together for months. Later on, I started removing them more. Um, October was rule of thumb for me for the longest time, but then I noticed some breeders that started breeding in August. When I started using the ultrasound for boas in the last like 5 years, I noticed that I actually had like two or three females out of like 40 or 50 that would be almost 20 millimeters already when most of the collection was at like 6 to 8. So there
Mm.
were a few off-season breedings I would have missed if I did an ultrasound. And that's typically how I get my season going is I will start running the ultrasound around August, get a few pairs together, see what their body language is. If I'm not getting good body language right away, a lot of times I'll separate for a couple weeks, give them a meal, give her a meal, put them back together again, until I start seeing good courtship. Once I see really good courtship, I'll pretty much leave them together until the male's in deep shed. Maybe she's in deep shed and he's ignoring. I do still try to get my males out a little bit here and there because I do want to get some meals in them. The females, I hear some breeders tell me they don't feed. I do feed through the entire breeding cycle. After they ovulate, I will do like some small to medium sized rats like the first couple months. Once I get past the first 60 days, I probably wouldn't even offer a meal anymore. It is possible if a female is trying to push out shit, she could push a baby out on accident.
Mm.
I've had that happen in rare occasions in the past, how I learned the hard way not to feed too far down the line. And then another thing for like breeding, I used to do food cycling. I would do fasting, which would be during their dry season. And then I would then feed them plentiful when it was supposed to be the wet season and the taking them off food and putting them back on food heavy. Honestly, for ball pythons and boas, always very effective for me over the years. Um, but now, honestly, I do lean on the ultrasound to let me know when my season is starting. And for example, last year I started doing locks in August. I haven't had my first lock of the season yet this year, and a lot of my females are on the very low side of follicle development. So
Mm.
I am easing into it, but I think the summer was a little long this year and a little hot. Last week we went from like 80s to like 70s. I think that cold front moving in and sticking around is going to get them a little more active. I'm going to probably see better follicle development this month. Yeah, sometimes it's just the weather, but with ball pythons, people talk about body language. If your female's wrapping her water dish or on the cool side, it means she's building follicles most of the time. Same thing with boas. If I notice the female boas staying away from the hot side, if I go in there and she's leaning on her side, that tells me her follicles are getting so big she's uncomfortable and she's got to turn her body weight around a little bit to become comfortable. Those are all things I look for in almost every species at this point. But in boas, just like ball pythons, if I notice them contorting their body or wrapping water dishes, I don't care what month of the year it is, I'll always get a male in there. Um, in the 20 years of doing boas, I've had a boa litter in every month of the year. I have one more litter I'm waiting on from my off season breeding over the summer should be due in the next couple days if it's not already waiting for me when I get home. And then I don't even have a female over 20 millimeters yet. So like where that part of my off season is now done, my new on season where it's gonna be most of my breeding is about to get going between like now and I'd say November, some in December.
Wow. And so you fast? Do you still fast your boas?
I did fasting for a long time, especially with this round of holdbacks. When I moved this past year, I will say I did start feeding a little heavily just because I had so many less animals and so much more food. Um, I kind of fed them a little more this past year than I have in the past. I don't know if that has anything to do with them not developing already for me, if that fasting was necessary. But even during the summer, like, I've never truly been on a weekly food cycle. Sometimes I'll do 3 or 4 weeks where I won't even offer a meal in the back, and then I'll give them like a really big meal.
Mm.
So there is still a little bit of like, I guess you could say intermediate fasting I'm still doing. And I'd say the slowest time of the year for my feeding would probably be like June, July, and August.
Interesting. Okay. Now, but so you said that you would fast during the dry season, right? Now, is that for what is happening around you, or is that based off of their
I,
natural range?
so it's not that I don't believe in natural ranges anymore, but we're like 5 to 10 generations of captive bred from the wild on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
They are not cycling the way they did in South America anymore. So for
no.
me, I treat it when the summer's the hottest and it's the driest. I treat that as my dry season personally. I don't know if that's the wrong way of doing it. It's worked for me in the past. One reason I don't do it as much anymore is the ultrasound. It's cheating, but at the same time, man, is it help out a lot.
Why is it cheating? I mean,
Well, yeah, some people consider it cheating. Like, there's some species guys that can be a little bougie about it. When I tell Wuma Python breeders that I'm ultrasounding my Wumas, they're like, why? And I'm like, well, I just like to know. It takes 20 seconds. Some people just like to be a little more old school about it, and some boa guys won't touch it. Um, I do think that you can become too dependent on the ultrasound, and I think it can create a bad breeding season for you. But honestly, I would be missing off season litters and clutches from so many different species if I wasn't checking almost year round.
mm, interesting.
I, I think it's just like I said, my boas, there is my heavy time of the year, but you know, my boas are really still a year round process. The only thing that can hurt the year round process is if I don't have a male up to the job. Like some people, like with boas, it really is a one on one. I try to keep it one on one. If I can maybe sneak a male and a second female, I'll do so. But it's very rare that a boa breeder tries to extend a male to more than one female. Sometimes with the ultrasound, though, if you get them in a little late in development and get an early ovulation and I get a few meals in them, and then I got another girl behind it building, I have jumped from one to another and got two successful ovulations within 2 months of each other. And the male was just fine afterwards. But like I said, your timing's got to be right. And sometimes there's a little bit of luck involved.
What about ball pythons? Are you feeding them year round, or do you ever fast your ball pythons?
So I honestly feed my adult breeder ball pythons once every 3 to 4 weeks year round.
Wow.
I do.
Whoa.
It's gonna sound silly. So when I raise them up, I do raise them up the normal way. Gradually get them there. I usually take a couple years longer than most people. A lot of my friends can get them up to breeding size by 24 months. A lot of times I'm 36 to 40 months because I'm just not pounding them. Um, and then once they hit breeding size, they get like a medium to large rat once a month. And if they skip the meal, sometimes they don't eat for 2 months. I've in between breeding, I want to say on average, I'm feeding a female ball python 9 to 12 times because I will offer smaller meals after they give birth for the first few weeks to just get a little mass on them before I start offering them the big meal again.
Hmm.
Um, the big meal looks a little obnoxious in the animal. It almost looks wrong. It breaks down within a couple days. You get a nice size shit about 10 to 14 days later. And then I come back in 2 weeks after that. And this is, by the way, all frozen thawed feeding. Once they get to adults, I'm almost solely doing frozen thawed. Yes, some weeks, some might not be into it. But if I don't noticeably see a size difference in the animal, I usually don't panic about it. But
Hmm.
in some cases, they will not want to take frozen thawed, and a couple months or a few months will go by, and I will have to start offering live small rats.
Do you breed your own rodents?
Yeah, I got like a 12 by 24 foot metal building for that. I want to say there's probably 400 to 700 female rats in there at any given time.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. I haven't
Does
bought a
that?
rodent in a couple years.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. I mean, that still has to be. It's still costly, though, right? I mean, you have overhead. You have the building. Do you have air conditioning on the building? Is there electric, and then your feed bill on top of it?
So the place I rent, I'm very fortunate because I live in Missouri and I live in like a really small town. Everything's abandoned. 1,800 square feet, 550 a month. Um, and $50 for garbage. In the
Wow.
summertime, my electrical bill is 700 to 900 to pretty much keep the building cool and run all the heat tape. In the wintertime, my worst months is about $2,100 for electric. And I also have gas running on half the building. So I got to fill the tank about once a month, and that's going to be about $700.
God dang.
Yeah. So I literally in the wintertime, my energy bill goes up almost $2,000 a month. Um, and that's going to stretch on, I'd say December, January, February, and sometimes March. But those 3 months are going to kill me. And then it's going to slowly get better.
Hmm. Do you ever get exhausted by it all, or could you not imagine living any other way?
Um, I love everything about it, man. I don't really get burnt out going in and working with the animals. Even the spa cleaning, everything's kind of routine. I don't really think anything of it. This is kind of a boring time of the year because my incubators are empty, and like my last Honduran just hatched the other day. I got one more boa litter, and then man, I'm not going to have any heavy stimulation till like March,
Oh, wow.
maybe April. Because I'll be shutting down the colubrids and the blue tongues in the next couple weeks. I'll be bringing them back up sometime in January, maybe early February. And then once I get going on the breeding, even the boas, like my earliest boa litters when I start breeding in March will be, I'm sorry, when I start breeding in August will be like March.
Hmm.
I'm probably not going to see boa litters this year until like April or May at the earliest. So simultaneously, my balls are going to be hidden. The boas, the blue tongues, and the colubrids will all happen within like a 2 month span.
Wow. That's got to be exciting.
It is, but I never produce enough rodents for that time of the year. Like it is a struggle. It's a lot of little mouths to feed. Your workload quadruples like overnight. I love it. Like I said, I really enjoy producing animals. I always have. Like we breed chickens, we breed ducks. Um, I always joke around. My entire rat colony all looks like mutations of some kind. I throw all the albinos out; they're garbage to me. Um, yeah, like everything that we do, like I've just always enjoyed producing stuff. As soon as I could figure out that I can do it, I just kind of stuck with it.
Why do you think that is? What do you think drew you to that?
Uh, um, well, I still think just keeping reptiles as a little kid. I bought my first boa constrictor when I was 8 years old with all my Christmas and birthday money. And like I said, a lot of things that have motivated me in life have been to flip over rocks or go fishing or now buy animals. Yeah, like I said, I don't put money into anything in life. I buy shoes on sale. My truck could break down at any moment. But with the animals, man, they're killing it. They got great caging, great diets. Like I eat ramen, and the blue tongues are eating blueberries and raspberries and sweet potatoes, and like it's just I don't know. I found I don't know what else I'd do, man. Did I say that? I wouldn't know. I don't think I'm qualified for anything else in life other than being a reptile guy. I'd probably have to sell cars like every other guy in my family.
Well, that sounds. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, I could probably sell the shit out of the car, I'm sure, but like, man, I enjoy the hobby. I enjoy the people. Um, I wouldn't go anywhere unless it just didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, walk me through. Well, I had a couple questions about ball pythons and feeding.
Yeah.
Is it normal for them to go off feed voluntarily? Is that not normal? And then, additionally, what if you're feeding and the animal just isn't putting any size on, or it doesn't seem like it's gaining weight or growing anymore? Have you
Um,
ever dealt with that?
so, I mean, animal that you're feeding and not growing, I don't know if that could be parasite related. That could be something genetically that could have been passed on. It could just be a fail to thrive. Um, usually there's an underlining issue with that kind of stuff. Even like, this is going to sound kind of silly, but like I told you, the girlfriend manages the baby room. And what we do is I want to know if things are going wrong. So every week when we go to feed, if something doesn't eat, it gets a colored star or colored sticker on there. And if I go in that room a few weeks later and I notice one tub has a few stickers on it, let's figure out what's going on. And one thing that I made a comment about with her, she's like, this thing was eating just fine and then it stopped. I'll check like above the cloaca for any obstructions. And a lot of times I'll find like a hard urate stuck there and I'll free the urate. A bunch of stuff will come out after it and it'll go right back on feed a couple days later.
Mm.
So, when if animal's not eating, I always want to look for an underlying reason why it's not and not just assume it's just being a picky eater. Most snakes will get going. Now, if a ball python does go about 3 weeks without eating, we will assist feed 1 or 2 meals or whatever's necessary. But fail to thrive animals, a fail to thrive animal. Most of the time, a fail to thrive is either give it to somebody as a pet with an understanding it's going to be a little more work, or let it sit around for 3 years and then do the same thing again. Just give it away to somebody. I've done dumb things like kept things around that just didn't grow very well, and then 2 years after taking care of it, I'm like, it's just got to find somewhere else to be now.
Mm.
If it's alive and somebody wants the responsibility, I don't mind. I just wouldn't charge anybody for that.
Yeah. How
But
do you like what's your sales pitch for ball pythons if you're selling them to a person, and how do you recommend that they set them up?
um, well, every case is different. But if we're talking more directed towards like the pet community,
Yes, 100% pet community.
I always recommend a 10-gallon aquarium to start. It's something that some people have them laying around, so on and so forth. I never recommend a light on top. I'm always belly heat, or they could do a heatometer if they want, ceramic bulb. Um, I always tell people they want to have a high box on or on the cool side and one on the hot side. Give the animal the option. Clean water dish in the middle, and then they can add whatever other bells and whistles they want to the setup. But I always try to make people, I essentially just let them understand like the quirks of the animal or like what can go wrong, without like scaring them away from the table with a million things that can go wrong with an animal. So like I'll make it clear they like their privacy. I always tell people, when you're going to offer a frozen thawed rodent, if the animal's in the hide box, present it at the opening of the hide box. Don't expose the animal and scare it. Sometimes in that bigger environment, they may not want to eat. So if you're going to set it up in a bigger environment that you already set up thinking they want something big, be prepared to do a feeding box. And a lot of times I just recommend like a 6 quart shoe box. I recommend putting the animal in there in the morning, keeping the box in the cage all day in case he breaks out of that cheap little box, and then offer the meal in that evening in that little box as soon as it eats, puts it back in the big cage if you want to go big cage. But from top to bottom, I'll explain the setup, what's involved, the weekly feeding. And then, to be honest with you, going back to paint jobs, you know, I let people know it's okay to spend a little more on a ball python if they like it, color wise, because I dropped $2,000 on a cat without batting an eye one time because I just like the way that thing looked. And a
Mm.
pet is a pet. And where some people think a pet needs to be a $20 or $60 animal, a pet could be a $2,000 ball python if you just simply want to look at a $2,000 ball python every day as a pet. But I always keep people in the deli cup section, but let them know if they want to look at anything else over here, let's talk about it. Also, let's just say I have what might be considered an investment animal and somebody's looking to buy it as a pet. I am a little more inclined of doing a lower price, knowing that it's not future competition. And I'm lucky to have a customer willing to spend more than $500 on a pet.
Mm.
So I will work with people, and a lot of times I'll ask them to, say what they want to put on it. A lot of times they'll offer a little more than maybe my low price would have been, which works out. But every customer is different. Um, the one thing that people complain about the most of the show is that the vendors don't engage with them. Sometimes I engage way too long while selling a $20 steak and people are walking away from my table. So I do have my sales pitch down to an art form now. I know the things I got to say. I know the polite way to walk away from somebody for 2 or 3 seconds before I come back to them. But really just, connect with a person and not in like a creepy way. I like the creepy way if I think I can get away with it, but I try to be normal sometimes. Um, if they're wearing a sports shirt, I probably know about one athlete that played for that team one time in the last 30 years. I'm going to bring him up in conversation. and I'm going to shut the fuck up while you stare at my animals for 15 minutes and talk sports. Like, if I can find a way to connect to the customer to keep their eyes on my table a little longer to maybe notice something they wouldn't have noticed otherwise, that's good for sales. So, sales, you got to gauge who your customer is. Is it a pet or is this somebody who wants to invest? Completely different conversation. Um, Again, connect with something they're wearing if you can. Try not to be creepy about it. The creepiest way I connect with people is when they're wearing corduroy. That's the worst thing to bring up in conversation. Corduroy people don't understand why you want to talk about the corduroy, but goddamn, do I love corduroy. But so, you kind of got to feel it out. And I'll test the waters a couple times with corduroy, but I'm like 0 for 6. I'm probably not going to do the corduroy thing anymore. But
Who's wearing corduroy anyway?
well, I mean, I'm wearing corduroy right now, motherfucker. But yeah, people wear corduroy. But no, yeah, it's keep people around the table a little longer, engage them as much as possible, let them spend a little more time looking at your animals, and just try not to be pushy. A lot of times, you can tell if somebody wants to be talked to when they come by their table. Like, some people have a welcoming way about them, and some people don't. If I ask you one simple question, I can gauge that result or your response and whether or not I should even keep on talking to you. Like certain people want to be left alone and will still buy from you, and certain people need to be engaged. So, you kind of have to just learn how to read people. And I go back to try not to be creepy, but honestly, man, I'm a pretty creepy guy. I
Why do
don't
you think
always.
that is?
Well, it's because I can get away with it. Not in a bad way, I'm not like peeping Tom or anything like that, but like, you see the silly things I post online sometimes. I can get away with almost anything in this hobby, man. I got my own little following, dudes in their 30s that live at home. Love every one of you guys. I know you're watching right now. Um, yeah, I lean into that a little bit, but no, I just, sometimes you say something to people and it just catches them off guard, and sometimes the way I try to engage is not the best way. You got to figure out what works for you. It's going to be different from everybody. Do I need a spit can? Oh, I don't work here. Yeah,
Oh
sorry.
yeah, you definitely look like you work there though.
Definitely, that's because I'm back in the storage room. I already told you, man. Look around me. I got like already found it. Got like tables,
Oh wow.
a whole setup over here, man. I got a little Zamboni over here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's perfect. You said you wanted somewhere quiet so you could have me all to yourself, and this is what I found.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't say it that creepy, but
Oh, well, I'm sorry, man. This is the best I could do. The American flag in the background was a big selling point for me. I meant to adjust it a little better before we got going, but that was a big win right there.
yeah, you got that and the band hat, and yeah, man, you're rocking it.
Got lucky. But
So now what about blue tongues? I'm kind of curious, like what's your sales pitch for them? It sounds like you give them, really quality care. How are you recommending new customers, or potential customers set up a blue tongue, and what are the benefits? Why are they a good pet?
um, so very inquisitive species. When I walk into the reptile room or in the building, like the first wall on my right is all blue tongues. They see me come in and they all come to the front and start staring at me. They want to know if I'm going to feed them. They want to know if I'm going to interact with them. Very inquisitive that way. Some of them will even put their face against the glass so their eyes pressed against it, and they'll just stare at you that way for a little bit. So I like that. It's definitely so when I do like my friends' birthday parties for like their kids, I always bring a couple blue tongues with because the kids can just throw them on their shoulders, walk around with them. They're always very docile, in my opinion. Um, Setup size is very similar to the setup of a bearded dragon. Substrate's different, pretty much. I wouldn't keep a blue tongue on sand. I'm sure some people could, but like, me, I do like a cypress mulch, and there's definitely different mixes of soil you can use for them. Fortunate they make the smallest little poops ever for for something that big. So like spot cleaning, very easy. Diet wise, canned dog food with a mix of different greens and different fruits. I usually try to do about 50% protein, 40% vegetable, and 10% fruits. So protein, vegetable, fruit. I stay away from beef or any red meats when it comes to canned dog food. The hobby had a real bad scare about 7 or 8 years ago where a popular can of dog food in the community at the time had some kind of issue with it that hundreds of blue tongue skinks across the industry died. Uh,
No.
Almost anybody who was using it all at the same time had some kind of issue. I don't know. It had something to do with the processing of the meat or the way they put the animals down initially before everything was like processed. But people were losing animals and they just couldn't figure out why. And it was just one after another. So I stick to chicken or turkey at this point because of that. I'll do like livers, like beef liver sometimes. Liver, in all honesty, is always really good if you can do livers. I do chicken livers. But you do hard boiled eggs, not too many eggs though. Um, so here's the sales pitch. It's a very inquisitive species. Their diet can be in your cupboard or your refrigerator. You don't ever have to buy them insects like you do with bearded dragons. It's a species that'll be about the same size as a bearded dragon. Where blue tongues do benefit from UVA, UVB, they don't necessarily need it to thrive. In the wintertime in your home, if your temperatures drop down to, let's say, the 60s, they can handle temps into the 50s or 60s because that's what we brumate them at.
Mm.
So, a little easier when your house is changing. You don't have to panic about your animal being too cool. And again, you can take them out, you can leash them, you can handle them very well. They're little arms, they can't run very fast. And when it comes to colors, like, we're not so much talking mutations with them, but Heather and Ron St. Pierre are killing it with the mutations right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, natural mutations or more line bred traits, like in the Northerns, you can make the reddest red you've ever seen, very yellow. There's one called Turner White, where pretty much they start out with some pattern and then they completely pale out to white. Um, any color you can imagine, you can pretty much get them in for more natural stuff, like yellows to oranges to reds. There are some pinkish looking animals we started creating. So I don't know if that was the sales pitch. That's why I like them. They look really great color wise. We're doing a lot of really good things with breeding. If you want to invest big, you could always go albino, patternless, melanistic, T positive, all the stuff that they got. Um, but no, like I said, for a pet, a little easier on your wallet when you don't got to buy crickets every week, in my opinion.
Mm. What do you what about their sheds getting stuck on their toes? How do you avoid that?
So I do keep an eye on humidity. If your shed is not coming off your toes, it probably means your humidity is just a little bit too low. Now, the
Mm.
species in general, like, if you're talking about like the Marukis and Irian Jayas and Halmaharas, though those guys can have a higher humidity, you don't have to worry about any RIs. But with Northerns, if you have them in like, say, a rack system with not very good air circulation and or airflow, and it gets really humid in there, you could run into RIs.
Mm.
So honestly, I just miss them a little more when they come into shed. I mean, when they go into blue, you can kind of see when they start kicking it off. Usually, if I give them a good misting around that time, I haven't had any issues. But the cypress, I probably I probably spray the cypress down in the building like every 4 to 5 days, and every 4 or 5 days it'll go from damp to dry. So that's what works for me. But I'd say just pay attention a little more closer to the shed cycle with misting. And if you do notice the shed stuck on their toes, get it off, of course. After it builds up a couple times, circulation goes away, toe falls off.
Okay. What what like and I mean, are they in your opinion like the best family like pet lizard?
I think so. They have very long lifespans, into the 20s easily, probably 30s. Um, I just find them to be a very easy pet to have. They're really not high maintenance. Again, they make very little messes after themselves. Um, yeah, no, I think they're awesome.
Nice.
I might
What
have
do
said,
you
Oh,
how are you, like, you know, being at all these shows and everything and interacting with people? How many people are coming in that are first time buyers of reptiles? Like they don't own anything. So you're essentially bringing a new family into the hobby with that sale or transaction. How often do you think that happens?
um, I get that at least once every show I go to, at least. Um, every year we get a lot of new people in the hobby. Um, you know, sometimes I help friends with like sales stuff sometimes. So like sometimes people will, like, send me a screenshot from a message on Morphmark and you just say, how would you respond to this? Sometimes you get these really crazy ass questions or comments, and the very first thing I tell the person is go check their profile. I bet you they just set up an account in the last couple days. And a lot of times they're like a 1 day user or a week long user, and they're just not familiar with the hobby. So they sound crazy when you're talking to them because they just don't know the basic stuff you expect people to. So
Mm,
that's my advice. Getting some crazy questions on Morph Market, just see how new they are. If it's a brand new account, some people just need a little more help in the beginning. Be prepared for that. But no, at the shows, like a lot of first time people, and with first time people, man, just answer a lot of questions. And if you don't have the answer, don't lie to them. And another thing with me at the shows, like, sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll explain what they want out of a pet. And I'll be straight with them. I'll be like, well, that's not what I work with, but go talk to this guy and see about this species. This might be more up your alley.
mm,
I don't mind sending customers away to other tables. They weren't my customer in the first place. I would have tried to sell them on something they didn't even want. And that's just not the way I do sales, especially when it comes to living animals. So, I send somebody over to a crested gecko table. He's going to do the same thing when they maybe want a blue tongue skink over a crested gecko. So at the shows, I'm always very cordial. I'm always trying to help out the people around me. When I sell a snake, I walk them over to the freezer almost immediately if they don't know what size to buy the animal and pick out a pack for them. My one buddy Dave just expects to see me 5 or 10 times a show. I try to make it as good of an experience as possible.
nice. What is what's your favorite thing about the reptile hobby or community?
Um, well, I used to joke around and say the people are my least favorite, but I don't mean that anymore. The animals are always going to be my favorite thing of the hobby because everything else is white noise. But the reptile community, like a lot of other communities that are formed, it's a really unique community. A lot of people from different backgrounds of life, different interests, they all kind of come together with one similar interest being animals. Um, I've met professional athletes doing this. Dwight Howard came out to one of the Atlanta shows one time. Biggest set of shoulders I've ever seen on a man in my entire life, like just fucking broad. Um, I've heard stories like Leonardo DiCaprio coming out and like buying a Selcata and throwing it in the back of his BMW at the California show. Um, you know, I'm a big history buff in the hobby too. So like, I love the old heads in the hobby. I like talking to the older gentlemen in the hobby. Um, you know, I don't know, man. I feel like I lost. I feel like I completely forgot what the question is. I think it was just favorite thing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things I really like about the hobby. I've got my community in this hobby. I get to spend time with. I get to do things like this. Like I've found the way to make the best of the hobby, and because I like everything about it now.
Mm, yeah. And what's your least favorite thing about the hobby or the community?
4 or 5 people. I'm not going to name them, but we're going to say 4 or 5 people.
We'll talk after we're
Yeah.
done recording.
Well, yeah. And it's a very short list, man. And I always joke around, and I got to stop saying this, but if I didn't like you in the hobby, you wouldn't even know it because I treat everybody nicely.
Mm,
I might try to avoid some people at certain times, but like I said, if you wouldn't even know I didn't like you. I don't go looking for it. Whether you rub one of my friends the wrong way or me the wrong way sometimes, if it's good enough, I might hold it against you.
mm. So you might not like me right now.
No, you're doing just fine, man. I thought you didn't like me when you stopped calling me and texting me for like 3 weeks.
It's hard too because we were communicating on Instagram, Messenger, and text message, and I realized I went to go text you, and I realized that I didn't save your number, and so I had to go back to Messenger.
Yeah. No, I think like you ghosted me for like 3 weeks over Messenger, and I was like, well, I'm gonna start texting him, and then I get a text back, and I was all like, well, I guess this relationship's over. And then you came out of the blue again, and honestly, so I was gonna message you yesterday and be like, hey, are we still on for the 24th? But in my head, I was like, man, I haven't heard from him. I was all like, maybe something else came up. I was like, I'm not gonna stress on this, and then I woke up to a message from you.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder if we're still on, if he's if he's still down to record today.
We're still on, man, and what a good situation to be in.
It is. It is. So you mentioned herp history and kind of the history of the hobby. Like what are some of the things that draw you to that subject? What really fascinates you about that?
Well, who doesn't like the history of anything, man? Like, you know, the problem is when you ask me a simple question, I realize, not you in general, but like I had a customer ask me about the Scoria boa, and instead of just like a short answer, I went on for like a short story about the wobble and how much they were when they first came in the hobby and how the morph was found the first time and where the breeding was and where the parents came from and who the first breeder was that tried to buy them and why he didn't buy them. Like, love all that. Does the customer
Yeah.
give a shit? Probably not. But for whatever reason, I had to just go on about every little thing I knew about the Scoria's history. Um, I just enjoy it, man. I'm the same way with sports. Like, I remember a lot of sports history, who won the championship, who did this, who was MVP. Like, my family's a big sports family. So, like, I just remember that kind of stuff. But no,
You all right. Well, now you tickled my interest. Can you
better.
tell me that Scoria history?
Well, so the Scoria history. So at one point there was Scoria, I think it was scoriaboa.com, and this would have been the early 2000s. So and hopefully this isn't a fib, but what I had heard was the gentleman, I think it was a boa came into his pet store, and I want to say he had a fish pet store. And then I think he moved, I want to say to Minnesota. And then at that point, I want to say someone who's going to college and surrendered a boa to him, and he put them together, and that's how the first Scoria popped up. Now, I won't name the breeder's name, but a big boa breeder went over there to be the first one to buy him, and I want to say the price tag was gonna be like $40,000. He
Whoa.
got over to help the guy sex him and look him over. Everything was wobbling really bad. And the guy said, the project is probably dead in the water. Like, these look awful, so on and so forth. Well, fast forward, I believe it was Rich Eiley went in and ended up buying the entire collection. And that was salmonboa.com. And if you go to Salmon Boa on YouTube, you can find old videos of just big, beautiful, sharp sunglows next to big, beautiful scorias.
Hmm.
Now, I know around the time that he acquired that was also around the time that I believe he started getting out of boas. So at that point, there was another gap in the collection that went until about like 2015 or 16. There was a Canadian breeder that produced a litter. And then there's also a breeder in Illinois that produced a couple litters around that time. Well, at that point, no one had ever seen a female scoria produce a litter yet. So there was a little bit of fear that there could be a viability issue with the females. So until I believe it was Brandon Nixon produced a litter from a female, females were not so much given away, but they were going for like a fraction of what a male would go for. Until it was proven a female would breed. And the moment that happened, price went up on females. Scoria market surged, I'd say around like 2017. And then it's kind of leveling back out now.
Hmm.
Scoria is getting put in some projects, but like, the champagne ball python is such a dominant look that it's really hard to combo it and it's just not get beat up by the champagne. Scoria is the same way. There's very few things you can put into it that's going to dominate the overall look.
Hmm.
Do you hear screaming, by the way?
Yeah, what is that?
It's either an otter or a monkey.
Damn, I was the way it's coming over the
Sounds bad,
my
right?
headset. I thought it was like maybe like an African gray or something.
No. We can edit at 1 hour and 22 minutes, or it might just stop. I think it's almost done.
I feel like it only does it when you talk.
Yes, it's doing that nonstop. You are right. So yeah, the story had a little bit of a rocky road because of viability and because of the wobble issues. And then they look so freaking cool and different than anything else. People still tried. And,
Mm,
you know, I'm torn, man. Like I said, I own one male because he's beautiful and I just always wanted him. Will I breed him? I probably will at some point. He's a sharp sunglow. I don't necessarily have the right female for him. Um, just kind of something I wanted in the collection to look at. If I don't breed them, I don't breed them. I'm not saying don't breed your scorias because a lot of people do, but some people won't invest in an animal with a complication.
I have a IMG Motley, and that's like my favorite morph of all the boas. I think it just looks super cool. Do you have any IMG stuff?
Um, Half of my boa collection is IMG, and the 15 boas I held back this year, I want to say 11 of them have IMG in it. Um,
Wow.
the Motley IMG is a really great animal to have because it actually sells very well in the pet market because the Motley IMG starts turning blacker faster than your normal IMG combos, and it makes them more desirable on the table at a smaller size.
Mm, yeah. Are they holding their value?
I think last time I sold them, they were around $1,200, and that was last year. I want to say this year they're probably still around 8 to 12.
Nice. Just so you know, when you're not talking, the I can't hear the animal in the background, but when it's whenever you talk, that's when I can hear it. I think StreamYard is cutting it out.
Okay, so it's me muting it is unnecessary.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about the monkey, buddy. I could probably close the door.
Do you want to? Do you want to try it?
I think he's trying to feed it, and it's screaming in
Oh,
between putting the bottle in its mouth.
wow. Why would you bring a monkey to a reptile show?
Um, $20 or $30 for a picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Uh, Man, again, it depends on the animal. Um, when I see these like larger snakes brought out to the show after show after show after show, it just seems like it really wears on the animal. Um, I'm sure different mammals can get worn on too, but my biggest thing is cross contamination at a show. Um, something's going to go wrong eventually, especially if we're talking about a reptile you're doing handling with. We do minimal handling at the show for that reason. I always tell people that, the only way I can sell them an animal that's healthy is if I don't let everybody else hold it before them. And that's why I don't just do general handling. And a lot of times
Mhm.
that's an excuse why in that moment I don't let them handle. But really, it is a truth. If I'm doing too much handling at the shows, I gotta might treat everything when I get home. Um, God forbid something goes wrong and I bring a mite home, I gotta shut the operation down for 2 months. Like, it's just not worth the trouble. So the big boas and pythons being handled at every show, I think it probably takes its toll on them. Not for the better. The mammals, I don't know what kind of things you can give a mammal. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I see that a lot locally. People will have like chameleons and they'll have a sign out like, oh, 5, 10, $15, whatever, to hold a chameleon and take a picture. And I don't know why, but it grosses me out.
well, chameleons aren't supposed to be handled.
Yeah.
Chameleons get stressed out very easily. I don't know if it's kidney or liver failure, but overhandling, one of the other two will happen. If they
Oh
can
my
see the
God.
reflection, it stresses them out. They die. Like, it's such a fragile species that I couldn't imagine anybody bringing them to a show to do general handling. It's really a set up and leave alone species that's really only going to live a couple years or a few years at best.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I'm kind of the same way. If I see my reflection too much, I'm done for, you know, shot. So getting back to snakes and everything, now that the monkey has been silenced, what are your favorite colubrids that you're working with?
Um, this is the first year I've done Hondurans, man. And man, even the normal Hondurans I'm making, I'm in love with. Um,
Mm,
I think Hondurans are going to be something that I've always really appreciated in the hobby. I'm probably going to start making a bigger move on now. Um, I mentioned like the Mountain Kings. Brian Carter had this special, the genus called Special. It's a Bob Applegate special. And it's got like no black pigment on it whatsoever. It was one of the best ones I've ever seen, so I had to buy 3 of them.
mm.
Um, I I do still enjoy the corn snakes. I have kind of fallen into like I've been making the same corns for 10 years and I haven't really expanded on anything. So like I either need to go out and like buy some orchids or do something that like will make me happy again. Um like I said, what I'm doing looks pretty, but I've just made so many of them now. I'm not as interested as I first was. Uh but I'd say probably the Hondurans right now and the Mountain Kings. I could see myself expanding into more Mountain Kings.
I really like black milk snakes. I'm kind of obsessed with them. And now I've found like people that keep them and have locality black milk snakes, and they like have their lineage and everything. And they're like giant nerds about it, and like really into it, which I love. Like that makes when I find somebody that's like really nerding out over something, then it makes it so I can nerd out over it too. But yeah, do you plan on expanding into any more colubrids outside of that?
Um Yes. To be honest with you, so I mentioned the ball python collection's at about 400 animals right now. Um the goal in the next 2 years, almost every breeder ball python that we've been working with for the last like 10, 15 years, we're probably going to start getting out of. Um and I'll probably for every one ball python I sell, I'll probably buy 2 colubrids. Um
What?
I just man, I really, really love colubrids. I love the colubrid market. Um, there's a lot of exporters that buy a lot of colubrids. Um, I I would go from 400 ball pythons to 800 colubrids tomorrow if I could. Like I'll
Wow.
always have some ball python projects around. Of course, I love talking to the guy. I love talking ball pythons, but like man, do I love my colubrids. They're automatic. They're easy. Um, there's a lot to do in colubrids still. A lot of the classic stuff, like there's certain stuff that like goes away and then suddenly comes back like 10 years later. Like I think what is it, white-sided speckled kings?
Hmm.
I think they were around years ago and then they disappeared and now they're back stateside for the first time in like a long time. And I think that's Queen of Kings down in I think she's in Florida. She produces those, but man, you could just have such a diverse, large collection of different colubrid species all in the same settings. That's why I want to work a lot of colubrids.
Mm.
Barchek talking about snake bites back in the day, he had that colubrid room you walked in, and it was just like melamine racks, like floor to ceiling. He had eggs on top of every rack. Things were hatching constantly. Like that, man. Really love just almost like you were talking about black milks. Love black milks. I don't own any. Love them though.
Yeah. Do you plan on getting some?
Yeah, I'll probably get some in the next couple years. Another thing is I kind of talked about how like certain prices on certain species went way up. It's literally every species I want to buy, but I remember buying them for so little not that long ago. I'm really stubborn, so with a lot of things, I just sometimes either wait for the right animal or the right deal.
Yeah. I think I remember because I've owned a black milk before, and I think I remember getting that and paying less than $100.
Yeah. No,
There's a slider walking across my front yard, and there's no water around us.
huh. They don't lay eggs this time of the year down there.
Yeah, that would have been a couple months ago. That's
Yeah.
wild. I at first I thought it was a gopher tortoise, and then I'm like, huh. And yeah, normally seeing it would be you'd think it would be digging a hole and laying eggs. Anyway, sorry. That really deep. Well, it's reptile related, you know?
I saw a map turtle on my old property. It came from my pond to my backyard, which was a hike, man. Laid some eggs and left. So I dug them up. I put them in the incubator, hatched them all out, put them in a little kiddie pool for like 2-3 months, got them a little bigger, and then threw them back in the pond pretty much. But that was the first time I ever hatched out turtles. It's kind of cheating, but it was cool and it was fast, man. I want to say they hatched under 40 days, maybe around like day 32 or 35.
Wow. I wonder if this thing does lay eggs, I would like to help those babies along for sure. That'd be kind of cool. Cause like in my area, man, it's bananas, dude. Like at my job, we have big storage ponds, and the turtles come out and they lay the eggs, and then either the crows get them or the raccoons, just destroy the nest. I don't know how they survive.
They numbers, but yeah, it makes me sad when I find the dug up nest in a bunch because we have a lot of like soft shell turtles, the spinies here. Whenever I come across a nest all beat up, makes me sad, man. That's what I was thinking about with mine. Like, first off, she laid them way too far away from the pond. They were never going to get back down there. Like, it was for me to walk from there to there. It's like a 2-minute walk. So already they're screwed. Like, I don't know what she was thinking. But no, man. I do hate coming across that stuff dug up. Yeah, it does make me kind of sad, but clearly they're doing well enough because, like you said, they're freaking everywhere.
Yeah, very prolific, very very reproductively fecund, if you will. Do you keep any inverts? No interest?
Do you?
I do now. Yeah. I have some purple earth tigers. I have a Mexican red rump tarantula, and a curly hair, and an Asian forest scorpion, a salmon pink bird eater. They're all, most of them are tiny. They can all sit on a dime. But
it's not that they scare me, but I've always really enjoyed being afraid of spiders. I don't know why. I'm not deathly afraid. We have tarantulas in Missouri, and I did handle one this past year. I felt pretty good about that, but I would probably just feel uncomfortable knowing that thing was in my house all the time,
See, it actually does the opposite for me. No, having them in my house actually makes me more comfortable when wild spiders come in the house and I interact with them.
Fair. My old house, like, so it was like out in the middle of the woods, and the previous owners, we did one of those things where like, hey, if you want to leave anything behind, leave it. Paintings on the wall, whatever. So they left a bunch of artwork, and literally every piece of artwork you took off the wall and looked behind it, there was anywhere from like 1 to 5 brown recluse. Whoa. And the entire house is just full of them. So when those giant wolf spiders would come in the wintertime, let them do their thing. They ate most of the spiders. I didn't have to worry about it anymore.
Wow. Damn. Yeah, it's so ironically, I think just after I got that most of these little spiders, I opened my bedroom door to go to bed. Like you're shutting all the lights off behind you. My wife's already in bed, so the house is pitch black. I opened the door and I felt something fall onto my hand, and I didn't even shake it off because there was no visual, like there was nothing to tell me it was a spider, right? And I felt it fall on my hand, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And I'm sitting there thinking, and I turned my flashlight on my phone, and there's this huntsman spider on the carpet. And, rather than kill it, I captured it in a mason jar and took it outside. And I try to do the thing that'll help my karma along, hopefully.
Same, same. I wouldn't typically kill a spider. I'll almost always let them go. And so there's a lot of jumping spiders in Missouri. I want to say there's 5 different types,
Mm,
and we find them in our house randomly. And I just take them over to the plants and just throw them on the plants and let them do their thing, kind of deal. But I like jumping spiders. I think they're cute, inquisitive.
yeah.
If I was ever to have anything, it might be a jumping spider.
Yeah, they're cool. The Mexican red rump, dude, the other day I went to go feed it and I opened up the top. It's in like a little, like, it's like the size of a Chinese food container, like little container. And
Yeah.
I opened the lid and I put a cricket in, and that thing came out of its hole and grabbed that cricket so fast it almost came out the top of the container. Like it was shocking how fast it was, truly. And violent. It was fast and violent, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I got bit. Like I understand it's not life ending, man, but like the risk is not worth the reward for me.
Yeah. Yeah, the last person I had on was Johnny Venom, so we were kind of talking about some of that stuff.
Nice. Now, the only thing I've ever remembered about that community was a friend of mine, like a decade ago, used to buy them by the thousands from Europe because in
Mm,
Europe you could buy them for like 4 cents on the dollar. And he would bring a
wow.
bunch in, feed them up a little bit, and go to the shows. And he made a killing doing that for years.
I bet. Damn. Yeah, I wonder what that looks like importing those though.
It's hard to say. I've never really done a lot of import export stuff. Whenever I've had any questions about that, I usually just talk to Mike Schultz because he worked for Outback Reptiles for over a decade off and on. And luckily, he's like 40 minutes from my house. So if there's a question, he's the guy to ask. He knows it all. But me, I'm just not overly familiar with that part of the hobby. Like that's like one of the few things I probably know the least about.
Mm. Have you ever exported animals out of the country?
Yes, but there's always a guy, as in my
Yeah.
customer buys through somebody here to export. Somebody with a master CITES if necessary. Northern blue tongue skinks used to be a huge export for us until they changed the rules. I want to say about 5 years ago. Um, us not being able to export blue tongue skinks anymore is also another reason why that market got hurt a little bit because I think one year I sent like 200 of them to Hong Kong.
Whoa.
So yeah, without that, it does affect our market here.
Damn. So when did that stop? During COVID, that they don't let animals imported into China now?
Well, it wasn't so much a China thing. It was more Australian species coming and going out of the United States.
Okay.
Um, I want to say that was probably about 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, this went into effect. And even like if I want to buy a blue tongue from a breeder in Canada, I can't even get it in from Canada to the United States anymore.
No
Um,
kidding.
so they've kind of shut it down. I don't know the exact reason. I think one thing I might have heard was, you know, Australia struggles to regulate this kind of stuff. And when it leaves Australia, it'll usually go to an Asian market because usually there's not a fish and wildlife. I want to say maybe Japan doesn't have a fish and wildlife. So everything just gets cleared in customs. And then from there, it usually goes to the European market and then it'll be imported to the United States. So
Mm,
if you can't stop the people from getting them out of the country, go to the country you know they're going. And I think that's why we're getting the regulations we are now in the United States to try to prevent poaching of these animals out of Australia.
yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It sucks, but it makes sense. What 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 do you do any herping abroad, or do you just herp in America?
I've never left the country. Um, I'm just one of those guys. I had a passport for like a decade and never went anywhere. It's so difficult when you have a large collection to have that kind of freedom. Um, I'm getting better now that the smaller the collection gets, the more freedom we can maybe have. But It's tough, man. I would love to go to South America. I'd love to go to Australia at some point. Um, I just I haven't got to that chapter yet.
Yeah. When you're herping in America, what are you looking for?
Anything and everything, man. I don't give a shit. Like I want to see everything for the first time. I get excited seeing garter snakes still to this day, man. Like I just love seeing animals. We go pretty hard here in the spring. I'll normally go for about 4 to 7 days where I bet you I flip over 1,000 rocks every year over about a week span. We probably put in anywhere from like 50 to 100 miles of walking every year in about a week span. Like we
Damn.
just get out and we just go hard. I think in the state of Missouri, we have 28 different species of snake. The goal is to see every one of them. I think I'm like 7 short still, maybe 6 now. So a lot of times, going into the new herping season, the goal would be to find that thing I haven't seen yet. And that might be the first couple spots we hit up. And then when that doesn't work, we'll go to those spots that we know are just always good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've got a good friend from Ohio. He comes in usually around like late May, early April. And I bet you we see over a 3 to 4 day span. Now, mind you, we'll probably see about 100 to 200 ringnecks, but we have probably herping trips. We see somewhere from 200 to 300 snakes over the course of like 3 or 4 days.
Jeez.
So and like every spot we go to is like 3.5 hours away from the other spot. So we'll like herp all day. Then we'll road cruise for like the first hour or two. The temperatures drop down. Then we'll just finish the rest of the drive, sleep in the car, wake up in the morning as soon as the sun hits us, and we just start herping again.
Man, that sounds brutal.
It's good. Feels good, man. I've got a herniated disc in my back now, so my life's over, and it's all because of herping.
How did you herniate a disc herping?
There's no rock too big for Dave, and sometimes I just go too far with it, man.
Wow. I think you found the rock that was too big for Dave.
Yeah, I didn't even know at first either because, we all get back pain sometimes. And after like 3 months of dealing with it, my chiropractor's like, here's the deal. This is what you got to do. And I'm stretching a little bit and I'm trying, but I could try harder.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Yeah. But has that like made caring for the animals more difficult with a herniated disc?
Um, it's like a yes and no. Lifting is a little tough now. It's like all my lower back. Being on my feet all day sometimes I probably gotta start buying a nicer pair of shoes or at least get a better insole. But I keep ice packs in the freezer at work. So to be honest with you, I start my day with an ice pack wrapped around me. Then I might put my back brace on for a little bit if necessary. Put ice
Oh my
pack on it
God.
later. I'm trying to go where I say I'm not really doing a lot to correct it. I am trying a little bit, but like I need to start doing yoga or again more stretching. Just simply icing it nonstop. Yes, it helps with the pain, but that's about the extent of it.
Yeah. I think you need a physical therapist.
I probably do, but I'm a reptile breeder, so I don't have insurance. So that shit's off the table.
Dude, what is it like living without insurance? I can't fathom that.
Um, well, you know what? I'm not a big fan of doctors, so like it kind of gives me an excuse not to go. To be honest with you, I haven't really been to a doctor in like 22 years, and you know, when I have a medical issue come up, I have friends that are pharmacists and other things, and I just get a prescription, from a
Wow.
doctor friend when they know like Z packs, shit like that. Those days are gone. My buddy's no longer doing that, but there was a while there I always had Z packs. So whenever I had like a real bad allergy, like in the springtime, I was golden.
Man, that's crazy, dude.
It's risky, man. It is, and it used to be medical debt didn't affect your credit score, but I think medical debt affects your credit score now.
Yeah, I think that was that got brought back this year, I think.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend moving here from Canada. And he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do about this insurance thing. And I was like, don't worry about it. You just don't ever pay the bill and it doesn't affect you in any way. And that week I was right, but now it's changed. So I got to let him know.
Oh no. Yeah, dude, medical debt is it's pretty wild. I'm not gonna lie. It is pretty wild. Especially, my wife had a visit to the ER and the insurance company said, "Oh, that wasn't emergent enough. So you're gonna have to pay that." They ended up taking care of it, but yeah, it did. I think it went to collections, or it was about to. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But it was a preposterous amount of money. It was crazy, but they did end up taking care of it.
So that's good because, as you know, it doesn't always go that way. Now it's tough, man. Like I said, I've been fortunate because, I played sports all my life and never had like a catastrophic injury. I broke my hand one time, but I still had insurance because I was a kid. Um, I've been very fortunate in my adult life that anything that's gone wrong, I've had somebody in my life that can help fix it. Another great thing about the reptile industry, I mentioned it's all these people with a similar interest that have these different careers in life. I can go through the rest of my life with my contacts in this industry and not worry about doctors or dentists or vets or anything really. Like, I have somebody in this hobby that'll probably help me out.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, it's scary, but it's good. That you have those connections. I mean, God forbid you break a bone or something like that.
Well, I think they just made bone glue in China, so there may be an option.
Bone glue. I mean, your body makes its own bone glue. I think your body puts it back together, but it's got to be set up right.
Yeah. Well, I probably got a guy for that, man. I'm sure I've got a guy for that.
You're a wild guy, Dave.
uh, Meanwhile, I don't know. I I like this. So fortunately, and I don't mean this in a fortunate way, but not having kids makes it a lot easier to be a gypsy in this hobby like I am. When you have
Yeah.
kids and you're in the hobby, it's just completely different. I can live this lifestyle for that reason. The moment I have a kid, man, I'm gonna have to make some changes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to like get a wife that has insurance or something.
Yes. And that's not looking good, man. Not looking good.
Yeah, I can't see you marrying somebody with with insurance.
No, I was married one time, but it was like one of those like out of high school marriages, and she worked for the Buffalo Zoo, so I had insurance, so that was nice.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
But unfortunately it didn't last.
Nah, my fault. I meant well. I wasn't the right guy for the job.
Yeah. Too much corduroy.
You know what? Too much mustache sometimes, man. Women
Oh
hate
yeah.
that mustache.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you had your priorities straight, you know?
Well, yes, I did actually. Well, here's the thing: if a mustache was too much, there's probably something else I was gonna do, followed by something else I was gonna do, followed by something else. Like it just made sense. Not that it was just a mustache, but really, it
Yeah.
was living in Buffalo, man. Like I got out of Buffalo the first chance I got, and then I went back to get married. And man, I was as miserable as I was when I left when I came back. Like
Mm,
the winters are long, the herping is shitty, the fishing's great, the food's good, sports teams are finally winning, at least one of them, kinda. Like Buffalo's a tough place to live, man, and it was just really hard to find happiness in Buffalo.
mm. Did you so what kind of collection did you have when you were in Buffalo?
Not as big. It was honestly, my collection has honestly been a roller coaster because I've been moved around a lot, or I've moved. Like, so to be straight with you, like, I started out like going on like the newspaper and going in the pet section in the back and buying like things I could find. Then it was going to the shows. And like when I first started going to the shows, I go to like the Buffalo show, the Cleveland show, the Columbus, Ohio, and the White Plains show. I'd save my $300 paycheck and I'd spend $300 on a reptile kind of thing.
Mm.
Did that for a while, built this really weird collection of like a pair of everything, realized that was dumb and I was never going to be successful that way. So I went from like 40 snakes I randomly acquired to, I think I went to like 4 boas at that point and like maybe a couple miscellaneous. Produced my first litter of boas, used that money to reinvest into more boas. Um, had a couple bad breeding years trying to buy adult stock, set me back a little bit. Then I got married and sold almost everything except for a few animals to pay for the wedding. Moved to Buffalo, and when I moved back to Buffalo, I want to say it was like probably like 2007 or 8. That's when I started going really hard with the acrylic display cases, and that's when my rebuild happened again.
Mm.
Like I was trading like acrylic display cases for like $4,000 banana ball pythons. Like there was just things that landed in my lap because of the displays. And then I started building back out again, started buying blue tongue skinks, not too much in colubrids at that point, still focusing on mainly boas, some ball python projects. Oh, I also got out of a bunch of boas during the Lacey Act a few years after getting into them. I was in North Carolina when US ARC started, and I was going to all the meetings and all the auctions, and I was scared shitless that the few boas I had would be taken from me, or I wouldn't be able to sell them over state lines. So at that point, I started acquiring ball pythons with an engineer buddy of mine, and
Mm.
we did well, but never really did that well. Um, so like I said, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, and then um, one of the girls I started dating really enjoyed blue tongue skinks like I did. So I went from having like 30 of them to 250 of them, like really fucking fast.
Jeez.
But then when we separated, she took half the collection, I kept the other half kind of thing. So a relief and sadness all at the same time. It stinks seeing things go away, but still to this day, we go back and forth with projects. We trade animals back and forth. Um, it's nice. But yeah, man, my collection's kind of been all over. And then the ball python thing was like, so when Ben Rennick died, I came out to Missouri to help with his collection. And that's really what put a big ball python collection in front of me. I had always had ball pythons, but I think at the most I ever had was like 30 of them. And then when Ben died and I started helping out with his animals, he had like somewhere between like 1,200 and 1,500 breeder ball pythons. So that kind of changed things. And then at that point, um, the gentleman who kind of stepped in to buy the collection after he passed away was the guy that I worked with for years. And yeah, that put me into like heavy ball python stuff. But prior to that, like I said, I had them off and on, but I never had the money to invest and I never had the vision.
Mm. When you hear people say like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a boa guy," or do you hear people say that, or like for me, I hear people say that and I'm like, "Hey, why not both?" I think that boas are really cool and I think pythons are really cool. That's why I have both in my collection. Is that like could you see yourself without one or the other and being like
So, from a business standpoint, even when I was mainly breeding boas and skinks and other things, to be successful at the shows, you had to have ball pythons on your table. There were shows I go to, I wouldn't sell any boas at. There had never been a show that I went to that I didn't sell a ball python. So what that meant is like creating relationships with guys, either selling consignment for them or buying to resell from them. And I only did that with a couple people I really liked. Like JMG Reptiles Jr. I used to get some leopard geckos from him, some hognose. I had a couple ball python guys like Ben Rennick. I used to get wholesale from him or consignment from him. A good friend of mine in Buffalo named Bill. I took on all his ball pythons to sell for him and took him to all the shows. I needed that on my table to justify a lot of these shows.
hmm,
So I have always needed ball pythons around to consistently make money, but the hobby has changed a lot since then. I could probably get away with it now But the hardest thing about my branding is I don't brand. I think I've been doing podcasts now for about 6 years. I want to say I've probably done about 150 episodes so far. I don't really know where I'm at, but like nowhere in there do I even try to brand. I don't even typically put my company name on it. I'm really shitty about letting people know what I'm doing. When people come over to see my collection, they're blown away about all the different things I have because I never post about anything ever. So, good and bad side. I make a living without having to post. That's great. But I mentioned I don't want to be on the road as much anymore. I'm going to have to do a lot more stuff online to get myself off the road.
Yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie. When I was like, oh, let me grab Dave's link to his morph market, and I was pretty freaking shocked by how many animals you had available.
Yeah,
Like really shocked.
it varies. It is a lot of stuff on there right now. Don't get me wrong, but it is a lot of stuff. I don't mean to underplay it. It's so much smaller than it was. It just doesn't feel like what it was before.
Well, I mean, yeah. I was definitely blown away. I was very surprised by the amount of animals that were on there, and that's why I texted you and I was like, "Hey, custom scales is you, right?" Like, I'm just like I had to like verify. I mean, I'm gonna read it off here. I'm looking at it right now. 173 ball pythons, 40 boas, 11 blue tongue skinks, 9 corn snakes, 5 sand boas, 4 milk snakes, and 3 other pythons, which are womas, I believe, right?
Yeah, it'd be Womas. It sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. I mean, it really is a lot, but it it feels like kind of small numbers considering I just told you I have like 1,000 animals in the building. But no, we produce as I mean, like I said, I really love producing animals. Yeah, I love seeing something new happening. I love having new goals. So like every year I go in, I do want to try to produce as much as possible, regardless of what the market's doing. I have faith I will find homes for these animals, whether they're in the pet market, investor market. So I never really shy away from breeding. That was another thing with COVID is, there was a portion of the hobby that was really worried about what COVID would do. And there are people that went into COVID not breeding heavily because they thought the
Mm,
market was going to be soft. Those people did regret it when they realized how hot the market became. So I'm always in this position where, yes, one, I enjoy producing them, and two, I want to have them when I need them, and I'd rather have them than not have them.
yeah. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, you have some incredible looking ball pythons here. You have some really cool looking boas. You gotta start putting that stuff out there more, especially with all your podcasting that you do, you know?
I could be better. I could try harder. I just don't. I would like to start doing more. MJ is always very encouraging, and at multiple times has said, go do your own thing, have some fun with it, kind of create your own identity in that space.
Yeah.
I'll always probably one way or another have some kind of show on MJ's channel, even if it's only every other Friday. Um, but at some point, I do need to get out. I do need to start doing more things that I want to do. It's not even laziness. I always joke around. I'm reluctant to buy a computer. I've gone my entire life without having to ever buy a computer, and I want to keep it going. But man, I really got to get a computer.
Computers are awesome, man.
Yeah.
I didn't have one until I started doing this podcast myself. So I feel you. But it's kind of nice having one.
All right. So, you know, throw a compliment your way. So, first off, I always enjoy the guests you pick. Um, the first podcast I ever had, it was called Herp House Rock, and I didn't tell anybody about it. I did like 50 or 60 episodes and never advertised for it. Um, just like you, man, like I always try to go after something very different every week. I like going with different species every week. Like I never really liked falling into the same thing. Plus the name, I think it's a great name for your podcast, by the way. I think it was
Oh,
very
thanks, man.
good. Um, But
Because
no,
I'm an
yeah.
idiot.
Well, I didn't know who the idiot was, honestly. I really didn't know for sure. I honestly was going to dress up smarter than this, but I ended up just going this route.
We could call it the insured and the uninsured.
Who looks like they're doing better? No, that's fair, man. It does sound risky, man. And I hear a lot of other grown-ups telling me this on a regular basis, but like it's just worked for me so far. I'm just gonna keep letting the ball roll for now until something really catastrophic happens. And then yeah. Oh
And then you're gonna like go try to get a job at like a grocery store.
no, I'll do what everyone else does. I'll do a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find a way to get back on top with other people's help. And everybody know this now. Someday I will need your help.
it's dude, it's crowdsourced medical
Yeah.
medical care.
Well, I heard of a new one recently, and I think the basis is everybody puts in case somebody needs it. I can't remember exactly what the name is. I'm going to figure out off camera what it is, but it's like a collective thing where just everybody puts in the same amount every month, and if somebody ever needs help, that money goes towards help, kind of thing. But it's like it's insurance.
I think they call that insurance.
Well, yeah, but it's different. Like I wouldn't call it a non-profit, but I don't think these companies are cleaning up. And when something goes wrong, I don't think people are trying to find a way not to give you your money.
Yeah, that's the big problem, right?
Yeah,
is that they're always trying to find a way not to pay you or to pay for the thing that you need.
that's it, man. Who was the first person you ever had on your podcast?
God dang, I'm so Kenny. It's Kenny. God damn it. See, dude, do you ever notice how when you're podcasting you can't think of names, or is that just me?
I'm really bad with names. Really good at remembering the animal you made one time.
Yeah, Kenneth Gall with KG Reptiles. He's saved in my phone as Kenny. We talk all the time. Yeah, that's I don't know what it is. It's like if somebody says, "Oh, who like you asked me before, who'd you get the blood python from?" And I'm like, Kara, and it's like I don't know what it is with names. And I know it happens to other people on podcasts too, so I don't feel as bad about it.
I've always been really bad with names. It's amazing what I'll remember about you sometimes, and sometimes I'll just simply forget a name. I'll remember your life story. I'll remember some moment we talked at a show, but man, do I suck with names sometimes.
Yeah. It's like if you're alone, it's easy to think of someone's name, but it's like when you're put on the spot, it's changes the whole dynamic.
No, I agree. So, by the way, can you hear this music in the background now?
No, I can't.
Keep going then.
So anyway, you were complimenting me on my show. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going. Keep going. No, I'm kidding.
No, of course. Well, I'm happy to finish. Now, here's the backhanded part of it.
Oh shit!
I've never listened to a reptile podcast. One time I listened to Bob Vu on Snakes and the Fat Man because William Philippek wanted to listen to it on the drive.
Oh, okay.
I love the hobby. I just don't listen to reptile podcasts. I do a reptile podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and I do want to be a little more engaged in the community, but like, I just don't watch them some reason. That was all
right. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
No,
going to be.
No, it wasn't that bad at all. No, I thought that was pretty good. No, it's a weird thing because, the first thing, like I never listened to a podcast till around like 2020, 2021, like never listened to Rogan that people listen to. Like I'd never even really thought about it. I just listen to music all the time. And then like 2020, I put on one podcast and then it turned into 5 or 10 and I just listen to them all day long, but it's just not reptile content, unfortunately.
I would say that maybe I think 25% of the podcasts I listen to are reptile related.
I respect. You ever listen to any
You
of
know?
mine?
Yes.
Okay, respect. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. If William's there, I'm there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you talking about Philippek?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, dude, love Philippek, man. Very helpful guy. I take his dad fishing every once in a while. Um, he's on my Halloween podcast next Friday.
Nice. I'll be there for it.
No, you'll enjoy it. We're gonna go live, be a little goofy. I think it's gonna be William, Steve Cush, Jeff, Galewood, me, and maybe one other guy. Maybe my buddy Alex. We'll see. That will
Nice.
mean nothing in this conversation. Wait, you put this on your Patreon group before you put it on YouTube, right?
Yeah, this won't see the light of day until like December.
Okay. Well, your Patreon guys, if they see that before Halloween, they can come tune in. Uh, a little more probably just like a fuck about hour. And you probably notice like when me, Jeff, and like William do a podcast together, it's usually because we forget to put a guest on. Friday morning, we don't know what we're going to do. We give William a call because,
Oh man, how do you live that way?
oh, I just don't. Well, I shouldn't. I'm not going to gloat about it. MJ hates it. I don't blame him, man. But no, sometimes we'll ask a guy and something will change last minute. And then we won't really find a second guy in time. And then again, literally, we just hit up William Philippek. He comes on with us, and then we end up doing like a 3 to 3.5 hour podcast every single time with no preparation. Because William watches every podcast there ever has been in the hobby, which
Yep.
is really great to have that when you're on a podcast because he can refer to all this kind of stuff. He's heard a lot of these conversations. So William, extremely helpful there. Junior, when it comes to genetics, man, if you haven't had Junior on here, you have to have him on at some point. He is a genetic whiz. He's been doing this since he was like a little kid.
Wow.
I think John Barry's new book is about to come out, where they're talking about hognose morphs. I think he's going to get a spread in there. He's got a couple pages, I believe. Um, Jeff's a great guy, man. Like Jeff is a sit back and listen. Like you don't have to do a lot of talking with Jeff.
Nice.
But
Nice.
so yeah, it's a good chemistry, man. I've always liked William. If I was ever going to go out on my own, I think William and Jeff are the two guys I'd be like doing it with. As much as I like working alone, I like the atmosphere sometimes. I like having more people around.
Yeah, it's nice to sometimes it is nice like, I do more of the one-on-one, but when there's more than one person or more than two people rather, it is nice to be able to kind of sit back and relax a little bit, like just having the comfort of somebody else coming up with a question or taking the wheel is a nice change of pace.
It's honestly a good balance. You know, back when me and MJ did Trap Talk every week, they were always good in my opinion because if one of us wasn't bringing it to the table that day, the other guy was all over it. Like if the guest didn't really fit one guy but fit the other guy, it was a good podcast. And this is going to sound a little arrogant because of that. I don't think me and him ever had a bad podcast together. Like I felt like one of us did the heavy lifting or he would go heavy for the first 40 minutes and I go heavy for the next 40 minutes. Like we just were able to come from like every angle. There wasn't really a conversation not willing to have. Really great dynamic when we work together.
Nice. Yeah, MJ's very easy to get along with and talk to. You're not going to have a boring conversation with MJ. That's for sure. And especially if you're there, then it's all peaches and cream,
Yeah. No, it's yeah, like I said, it's like, sometimes I think I really love always having a group setting, but then like at the same time, like, I really do love one-on-ones. Like it's always a different conversation. And sometimes I'm selfish and I just want them all to myself. Like, especially when I get like these OG boa breeders on, like anytime I get a guy from like, a Craig Trunbauer or a Bob Applegate or Rich Eiley, like I want that one-on-one. We can go back a second time with somebody else and we'll do a little group discussion, but like I really do love a nice one-on-one podcast. But to be honest with you, they're rare for me. Like maybe once every
Mm,
couple months, I might actually go solo.
yeah. That's wild that you like figure it out on a Friday because I'm like booked out to December right now.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to want to talk about on a Monday. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know
true.
what's going to pique my interest that week sometimes. And, sometimes it's on a whim. Not sometimes, it's almost always on a whim. Like, I know we have our podcast this week planned, and that's just going to be kind of friend podcast. We're going to dress up and be goofy. Um, we might have Dr. Stahl on after that. I'm waiting to hear back if we're going to be doing that. I know I'd really love to sit down with John Barry soon. We have Bob Applegate on the back burner for a podcast. Who else do we have coming up? Uh, Bushfeld. Supposed to be bringing him
Nice.
on for house snakes, but I have no set dates for any of this stuff. And honestly, out of those 5 people I just said, none of them might even happen. Like it's literally that's podcasting for me, man. It's
It's just
sometimes
going to be William for 5 weeks.
it, if you ever see William on the show, it's not just because I like him; it's because we had no plans going into it, and we call William. Um,
Nice.
but it works every single time. Like I said, there's never been a time where me, Junior, and William have not sat down for at least 3 hours. And I think even like last podcast we did together, I jumped off and they stayed on for like another hour afterwards. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
we just have a good chemistry together. So I like when the three of us get to work together.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm getting pretty hungry. I can smell dinner cooking, and we're right at 2 hours and 15 minutes. And after I edit it down with all the time that you had to go fix that monkey, it'll probably be down at like an hour and a half. And
You think we lost 45 minutes to a monkey?
no.
Come on,
But I appreciate it, man. It was good talking to you. Yeah, you gotta promote your business more, man. Get that, make like sling them snakes on the internet. You know what I'm saying?
got to get better. You're right. And I'm going to try. Got ideas. I just don't follow through with them. But
You have beautiful snakes here, man. I mean, these are crazy looking. What is this? Is it Marin Het VPI?
Marin stuff. That's my next litter I have is going to be a Marin litter. Marin's a unique gene that kind of got lost in time in the hobby. There is a super form, but I think only like a couple animals are sold and one wasn't viable. So they kind of disappeared. And one tough thing about the Marins is there's so much pastel and boa constrictor lines that sometimes people produce this bright pink animal you think is a Marin and it's not a Marin. There was a lot of
Mm,
non-Marins sold for years. That's the Marin project. It's neat,
wow.
but if you go looking for it, man, if you look up Super Marin boa, you'll find some really nice ones. They look like blood boas, but more maroon. Um, Check that out. Neat animals. No, where I talk about I'm always afraid to spend money on ball pythons because I know I don't work fast enough in that industry. Boas, man, boas, my biggest investments I ever made in the hobby were boa related. And I don't think I've ever been burnt on a boa investment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these sun glows are crazy, dude. Like, I mean, and that's kind of cool because like that could be a project for somebody, right? But also it would be an incredible pet because it looks so cool.
Yeah, so the lineage on that albino stuff, like literally, I bought a red rum pastel boa constrictor, a VPI visual male, like I think it was about 12 years ago. I paid $5,000 for that animal when I could buy a normal VPI for like 1,000, but I wanted the
Wow.
best. And honestly, every VPI animal that I've produced since then has had red rum somewhere in the mix, and because of that, they're just always really good looking animals.
Yeah.
When we get off here, you'll check your messenger in about 20 minutes on Facebook when you're done eating. I'll send you some nice boa pictures.
Yeah, I mean, and then like on the other end, like you have all that color in the junglos and the sun glows, and then you jump to the other end of the spectrum where you're looking at like the jungle IMG anery, and oh my god, dude, like that's like no color, but just that like so much contrast, really beautiful animal.
So that's
And
actually one funny thing about like the mindset of the hobby right now, where like Xanthic or Anery has kind of been cool, but like, and some people, I don't know if it was looked at as a dead end, but not many people went that way. And we started the podcast. I mentioned that like Xanthic crested geckos were 2K and nobody wanted them, even though there was no morphs in that community. Well,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden we're like going down this like black and white thing in all these species. Like boas,
Yeah.
like you said, with the VPI snow stuff, with just the anery stuff and ball pythons, all the DG Xanthic stuff right now, DG Xanthic clown stuff. Like black and white is in right now for mutations.
It definitely is. And like, so how do you keep, Bob Vu kind of was talking about this and like talking about anery, uh, ball pythons that don't brown out. I can't remember the combo that he was saying though.
Pastel maybe helps.
Okay.
He might have mentioned pastel. You're talking about in the Xanthic project, right?
Yeah, Xanthic.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, DG is going to help with that to stop with the brownout, and a lot of people do like putting pastel in that too. I think it makes a nicer looking animal. But if you don't know ball python guys, ball python mentality is pastel is bad now.
Really?
It dilutes a lot of like when you're striving for oranges and reds, it's going to dilute it down. When you're doing all these clown combos, you get pastel in there, it's going to dilute down a lot of these directions people are trying to go on right now. Pastel in some projects is bad, but in some projects it's good. And in the Xanthic DG stuff, I think pastel is good. In my puzzle stuff, I think pastel is good. But again, pastel will put limitations on certain colors you're trying to get in ball pythons.
Okay.
So, ball python mentality. A few guys started talking about how bad pastel was, man, and pastel everything is very hard to sell now. Even some of the DG combos, like if you sell one without pastel, let's say you get 1,000 for it, the one with pastel might only be $500. You're adding a gene, but you're actually devaluing the animal in some cases.
Interesting. I'm looking at this Rennick chocolate pH puzzle. What is pH?
Posset puzzle.
Oh, okay. Possible head puzzle. That's a beautiful animal. And then right under it is super enchy calico lesser. And it's like, again, like two different ends of the spectrum. One's super light and creamy, and the other one's really dark and super cool looking ball pythons.
So when we downsized the collection, we didn't do it from the best business standpoint. I kind of just kept all the things I liked looking at, even if they weren't like a high end project, I guess you could say. So like we sold all our pieds and all our lavender pieds. I think they're beautiful and people want them. I lost interest. I didn't want to keep on making pieds. So like some of the stuff we're working with, my ball python collection is really geared towards pet market people. And occasionally I make something really investable. But a lot of the stuff we make is our goal is $500 or less, and we're happy. I wish I was selling $5,000 or $10,000 ball python still because it really helps on the overhead when you get that big sale. But like, we're just not built that way anymore. We do have some stuff we're working on and some new mutations we still got to put out that may be more on the investable side, man. But I'm a $200 ball python kind of guy, to be real with you.
I mean, that all adds up, right? When you're doing shows and it's kind of cool too that you're connecting, families with maybe their first pet snake or, maybe they're just getting a pet ball python. I think that's really cool,
It's, we make a living. I've always been very happy. And like I said, certain species I overinvest in. Ball pythons, literally, I've said it 10 times. I just don't move fast enough in ball pythons. Like, it's a market that does move fast, and that's why I have a couple projects I know I could be slow about, and I'm not worried about it. But yeah, ball pythons, man. Like, I've seen people pay $20,000 for an animal on a Monday, and on a Friday it's $15,000, and by the end of the year it's $4,000, and that's really discouraging for new money coming in the hobby. There's not a lot of industries you see that kind of crash.
Yeah, for sure. All right, brother. Well, thank you for your time, man. It was great having you on.
No, I'll throw you my schedule if you ever want to do this again on my home turf. We'll go another couple hours. We'll go a whole other direction with it.
Wait a minute. You mean you come back on my show, or are you inviting me on your show?
Well, you can come on my show if you want to come on my show sometime.
Wow, really?
Have you ever been on? You've been on a show, right?
Nobody ever
invited you.
Nobody likes me, man.
Well, I don't want to break this to you. Nobody likes me either. You're probably the third or fourth network I've ever done a podcast on. People just don't ask sometimes, but I think people are afraid to ask sometimes. I think because I have my own thing, I wouldn't want to do someone else's thing.
No, so I have been. I was on NPR, which was an honor, and I've been on Trap Talk twice, which is also an honor. I was just playing with you, but I think you gotta be like, hey, small, or custom scales, you gotta start throwing that name out there, man. And then people are going to be like, oh, I got to get this guy on.
I'm going to try to be better. Maybe I'll get more invites. I still want to believe it's just people are afraid to ask, but it could be the other.
I think that's what it is too. The beard is intimidating. The corduroy is intimidating. The band, everything you got going on is intimidating. You do these. I know last year you did the sliding down the ice, and there was like fireworks or something. There was explosions.
Well, no, I do that 4th of July video every year. And then I do some stuff in between, and there's ice involved. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there was definitely skates and maybe some tight underwear. Or
I think that's when we were playing naked hockey on the pond.
That's right. Yeah.
That was a jock strap, leg pads, and a glove and blocker. Yeah, I kept it real simple. It was nice, real nice,
classy.
But yeah, I'm gonna end on this note. Like, I've always enjoyed nudity. When I had MySpace, man, my MySpace page was just naked Dave all the time.
Wow.
There was once a time when you Googled sexy goalie and went down the images, I was in the top 10 images for just a little while. Like those pictures got around a little bit, but yeah, no, man, the industry just keeps on liking these posts, so I'm just going to keep on doing them, man. Maybe I'll do more, but yeah, the 4th of July video is one of my favorite things I get to do every year.
Hell yeah, man. All right, brother. I appreciate you.
Of course. Well, until I have you on mine, it was great.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but hey, just putting it out there, if you come on mine, you got to dress up a little bit. You can't just show up looking cool.
Oh, okay. No Trap Fest shirts.
Well, I did an episode with Bob Vu, Chad Halker, and William Morose, and I thought we were all dressing up like Pokemon characters, and I was the only one to dress up, and they all wore that same Trap Fest T-shirt, which is cool. It was funny, but I thought we were doing this whole thing, and I just wasn't on the same page. But
yeah,
we'll talk ahead of time. We'll coordinate. If you want to make, I was going to say you can make a cameo next Friday on the Halloween show. You got kids. I'm sure you're going to be real busy Friday night.
I will be 100%. Yeah, totally busy. Absolutely.
There'll be other times. I'll call you on a Friday morning and tell you to stop by.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All right.